I've played a ton of Interchange to swipe, and I've never been extract camping
You've
at all.
never been extra
Never,
camped?
never.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. Okay, it's you're thinking Church is trolling me.
Because you're
He's
the camper?
no.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's welcome to ScavTalk, an Escape from Tarkov podcast with a continued focus on development of the game, patch note analysis, theory crafting, and general gameplay discussions. My name is Church. I'm one of your hosts. I am a video editor for a Tarkov YouTuber named Airwing Marine.
And I'm GigaBeef, a Tarkov YouTuber helping you guys get better at the game. And welcome back to ScavTalk. Today we have Ghost back on the show, who's a
Yeah.
longtime friend of the ScavTalk family. Welcome back, man. Good to have
Thanks,
you here.
guys. I'm really excited to be here, and I love both of you, so thank you.
Excellent. Well, we love you too. So, how's it been going? Like, what's been going on in your world? Like, how are things?
It's been really good. It's been really busy. I am at that moment in my year where we have like 7 family birthdays and amongst other things. And so it's just like a really busy season. And then also I just recently changed my schedule, which has put a whole new slew of stuff in here. I am actually working on some stuff kind of in the background, some new projects. And so they are kind of like time sensitive. So I had to go from mornings to streaming at night, which is a big difference. And so, yeah, I'm kind of just doing that. And then I'm also in the midst of adding other games for the first time in like 2 years to my schedule, keeping Tarkov the main game, Tarkov the first love kind of thing, and then sprinkling in a couple other things, which is also new.
That's really cool. Yeah, I've actually seen you popping onto a few different things. I think were you getting obsessed with Apex again at one point or something? It's
Yeah,
like,
dude.
oh no, can't do that.
Apex really comes down to like just getting the movement, dude. The movement in
yeah.
Apex is just so good. It's really really fun to play. But but yeah, adding a couple other things in there as well. Warzone, and then adding a little bit of Rainbow Six Siege.
Interesting. I think like Siege is one of those games that I actually kind of want to. Have you ever played Siege, Church? Have you
I actually have
played it? I don't
not.
even have it. No.
Have not played
Siege
it.
is a really good game. It's a really, really good game, especially if you guys want something that is competitive, but
Hmm.
also tactical. There is the gadget aspect, which some people are like, I can't get fully immersed because they're using gadgets. But at the end of the day, it's still a pretty tactical game. You're using teamwork to win. And if you want something more competitive, because I mean, Tarkov is not competitive, like we do have tournaments, but there's such an element of RNG in most of the tournaments that
Hmm.
Tarkov is not really like an actual competitive game. So if you want something with like an elo and grind the ranks and stuff, Siege is a very good game.
I guess that's the thing about doing Apex and Warzone and the others as well, is that there's sort of that similarity too. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's the impression that I get from Siege at least. Is it's very specific, very focused, and yeah,
Hmm.
it's. I guess like how much Valorant? Are you a big Valorant player as well? Or
You know what? I actually thought that Valorant was going to be my game for a little bit.
oh
This was
really?
before I was getting really into Tarkov. I started creating content on YouTube for Valorant. I was like full throttle Valorant, getting different skins and getting ready to like, I was really practicing, like dialing in, spending a couple hours a day on just aiming. And went back into CS and was like practicing in CS because CS helps with Valorant because it's
Hmm.
very, very similar. And yeah, and then I started playing, and what happened was the second season, I think it was the beginning of the second season, they had a mess up with their anti-cheat because typically they have a very good anti-cheat,
Yeah.
at least when it started. It's invasive, but it works. And so they had where it was down for like 3 weeks, and it was really bad. Like it was unplayable. Like every single match, there would be 3 or 4 cheaters on sometimes both teams, one team. So it was just like ranked was just unplayable. The content was very toxic because everyone was upset about it, and it kind of pushed me away from it. And then I started playing other stuff. They fixed it, and then I just didn't go back to it.
Interesting. Fair enough. It just shows you how just tiny little, situations within games can really turn people off. It makes me wonder how many people have ended up being turned off in a similar situation from Tarkov, but
Yeah.
people obviously away
Mhm.
from us who've come in when there's a bad patch happening or there's something bad happening. There's some issues with this, that, and the other, and then they turn away. It's hard to know. It's hard to know the
Yeah.
impact,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's super cool. How have you found the experience of moving to a different time slot? Because for me, it's a bit weird because I'm here in EU. if I stream in the day, like North America's only just kind of waking up, whereas if I stream in my evening, that's kind of like NA,
Mhm.
afternoon. So it's a bit weird here. Whereas for you, it's I guess it's either you were streaming in the day and then now it's like kind of at night. Do you find because I think there's a lot of people on at night, but there's also more people streaming too. So I was never sure which
Yeah.
was like how that ended up panning out.
It's it's hard. Just an example of like numbers, for instance. When I stream in the morning, about 2 hours into stream, I typically have between like 50 and 60 people in the stream. And then at nighttime, 2 hours into the stream, which obviously numbers aren't everything, but this is a decent gauge of like the difference. Is I will have about 15 to 25 people in the stream.
Oh
So
goodness.
it's a big difference. But I also very, very much preach that numbers aren't everything. And even though they are a gauge for us to see like how we're doing, we should be able to grow without, grinding a specific, like if we're relying on a time slot as content creators, as streamers to be successful, then there's going to be many, many times down the road that we are going to fail. There just is.
Mhm.
We if we're reliant on a single time slot. So for me, I'm like, it does suck. We're getting some new people in there, and then I'm kind of like in a double whammy right now too because I am pushing for other games at the same time. So
Yeah.
I am adding new games, which makes people leave because they only want to watch Tarkov, and I'm changing time slots. So I am like pushing the limits right now of like retention for what I usually have. But like I said, I'm having a good time. I'm excited for new things to come. And there's, in my opinion, a lot of times there's going to be moments of slower paced growth when you are growing in other places. And so if you're, we all have the same amount of time in a day. So if I'm putting value in other places behind the scenes and in other things, um, and I'm not streaming every day 10 hours a day with the people that are coming from my other stuff, and I'm not in my normal time slot, and I'm not on my normal game, numbers shouldn't be the same. So it's I don't consider anything bad. It's just definitely different.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think also you especially looking at your content and say, well, if I'm doing exactly the same thing and it's 50 people, but even on Tarkov or something, and it's like 50 versus say 35 or whatever, for doing
Hmm.
exactly the same content, it's just moving time slot. Then you're like, well, that's the time slot then, because I haven't changed anything that I'm doing, and if I go back to the old slot, then it's the same. So I guess it's yeah, as you say, it's not really too much to worry about. Well,
Hmm.
I wish you the best of luck, like, with
Thanks,
these
bro.
changes. It's never easy to change stuff around, and I know how hard it can be to get the schedule on track because there's
Hmm.
just so much that is happening. I've got a moth in my room, literally flying around these lights that I've got. So it's that's the downside of having big lights now is that there's a
If
moth in
there
here
is any
that's
bug,
obsessed.
exactly, they're going to be on it.
Definitely, I'll know about it. Cool. So yeah, no, this is it's really good. Good to have you here. We have had an interesting week, I guess, in the EFT space. It's been
Hmm.
kind of bitty, I guess, with news and stuff like that. I think Church has done a better job of actually populating what's happened within because we normally keep a little note of like what happened in here. And normally I'm very diligent, but I've been very lax this time. But we've had a couple of leaks and a few things that have come through, and there was a community Q&A as well, and then there's some events as well. It's all
Yeah.
a bit of a mix, but
Hmm.
Church, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the
Yeah, well, I think jumping in here, one of the more earlier things was we got the letter from Rizzy, or
yes,
maybe it wasn't. No, actually, let's go further back because there was was it the letter and then the lighthouse teaser on Twitter where the rogues were at the camp and the lighthouse was flashing. Man, it's so hard to keep track. It's just
yes,
like
you can go back
everything
even so
blurs
there
in.
was there was the Raider event on Factory which kind of started it off,
Right,
right?
that
And that
was
was the
yes.
yeah, and
Hmm.
that was the letter. Was that from? Was that to Rizzy? I can't
I
remember.
think it
Was
was
that from
too
Rizzy?
Rizzy. Yes, because I believe that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Raiders were going to Factory. They were trying to find Tagilla. Tagilla moved over to Interchange. The Raiders got there and there wasn't anybody there. But then Rizzy or the other guy got tied up in Factory because he was trying to sell
Rizzy.
the information. Um, and then we have the lighthouse flashing with the
Hmm.
Morse code thing, which I love that stuff. So that that really got my juices flowing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is the Red Scav a friend or foe? Which is kind of cool. And then now we've had was there another? Is there another letter in between that? Because the one that
Yes. So
happened, Yeah,
I
what was the next one? I forget now.
I want either after or before the Lighthouse teaser with the flashing Morse code, there was another letter,
I think it was
written.
after.
Okay, and I think it was written by Rizzy, but he talked about, like, he was going to the lighthouse and there was no one here, but he felt like people were watching him and stuff
Mhm.
like this. Um,
Yes.
so that sort of, like, implies, I don't know, there's been some, like, crack pipe theories going on amongst the Airwing and me. He's
A
just,
lot
like,
there's been a lot in
speculating.
just the community in general, dude. I'm like,
Yeah,
"What
it's
is going
true.
on right now?"
Have you guys seen Nice Guys, believe that he would do?
It's so good. The Sons of is it Sons of Soon?
Sons of
Is his
Soon,
Yeah, Sons
dude.
of
is his
Soon,
Yeah.
yeah,
created this
yeah.
cult with
Mhm.
and the merch for it. Oh my goodness.
Dude, I thought that was clever, man. I kinda want it. I love that he included the "We will blee 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 blee" when Nikita fumbled over
Mhm.
his words the one time. I love it,
Yeah.
dude.
So,
Sons
so
of
good.
Soon was a cool name too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
That's a
really, really cool.
it's something that fits more than just this specific time in Tarkov. It's something that we've all come to be, Soon TM has like been the common response for a long time. So Sons of Soon is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's awesome.
I think the other part of the letter that I forgot was, yeah, again, he's at my house, he feels like someone's watching him, but then there was something about electronics being mentioned, like, I can't remember the specifics, I had to, like, go watch a video that we published,
Oh,
but
yeah.
but
Yeah,
the
yeah, he was
he
saying
was
about,
sort
like,
of, like,
selling electronics to the rich
hinting.
people or something,
Yes,
yeah.
that's it. I think he was talking about the trader. And then now, of course, today, Friday, when we're recording this, Friday morning, they pushed out an update where the dealers are now offering really valuable gear, really high-end gear for different, like, military grade electronics, I wanna say. I don't think, like, G phones, but, like, Vertexes, military cables, things like this.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the intelligence center crafting stuff that you need for
Mhm.
peacekeeping normally. The
So
radio transmitters, yeah.
the last thing that they say is, he says at the end of the letter, P.S. There is no trader around here. Yeah, the one which sells best electronics. Who knows what's going to happen to all the electronics now? That's how the letter ends.
Mm.
And then we have all of these new barters, which I believe there's 21 new barters. And most of them are electronics based, rare electronics based, which was kind of confusing when I first stepped into Tarkov this morning because, well, I mean, Twitter is never a good gauge of like what's actually happening because you never know if like people are trolling or if people just are regurgitating or if they're actually informing.
Mhm.
So Twitter was all over the place this morning. When I first woke up, I have all these messages that I'm looking through and I'm like, what? The first thing I see is, oh my gosh, wipe. Then the second thing that I seen was crazy new event, literally insane. Then I seen one that was like, oh my gosh, the Zook is back. And I'm like, okay, I need to go on. What is actually going on here? Because these are all very different and everyone is just, it looked like chaos. But when I actually got on, it seemed very calm. There was no actual update for me to download, which meant that, in my opinion, that it wasn't anything big, right? It was
Mhm.
something we were able to add in without making anybody update anything. Um, and most of the trades aren't actually worth it, which also was weird to me because at first I was like, if this was a pre-wipe event type thing, everything would have been really cheap, barters would have been worth it, everybody would be running reapers and zooks, and you know what I mean. But it wasn't like that at all. You're bartering for a hex at 1.1 mil. You're bartering for other items for way over what the old barters are or what you could just buy them for. So it was kind of like, you know what I mean? I was kind of
Mhm.
confused honestly this morning because I'm like, but then somebody in my chat was like, I don't think this is like an event just to be an event. I think they're trying to make everybody get rid of all of their electronics that they have hidden in their stashes and their bit
Mm.
hoarding, and so that they can barter for stuff, and then they won't have any, and then that way it's kind of like a purge of electronics. And I was like, that's actually could be something because the barters aren't really making sense to me. So, what do you guys think about that?
I think that's what well, I saw a nice guy say that about getting rid of all the electronics,
Okay.
which definitely makes sense. I think that maybe some of the barters would have made sense before the event, but because no one has what happens normally, right, with this stuff, and I'm interested to see because I haven't really been on since because I did a quick video about it because I got excited because it's barters and I just kind of enjoyed it.
Hmm.
And then I haven't been on since, so I haven't really been checking the prices. So I reckon that it's all gonna get to some kind of fair level. But people see these events, see the barters, and then all the stuff just goes, it just rips completely like crazy.
Exactly.
So
Hmm.
everything's super expensive. So it probably
Hmm.
made sense for some of these things before the event. You know, if you were the first couple of
If
guys
you're
in the first
yeah, if
five
you
minutes,
were
yeah,
doing
Yeah.
it in the first maybe of an hour or 2 hours before any big creators posted a video or before anybody started ranting or going buck wild on Twitter, probably was worth it. But yeah,
mm,
they're all like through the roof, dude. Like,
yeah, it's crazy. The stuff's like 200K for each item, and some of the barters are 5 items or something. Yeah, it's exactly as you were saying with
yeah.
the hex grid. But I'm excited that they've put the Zook back because that's an armor that I've been talking about for a while now, being like, where's it
Hmm.
gone? Like, where have some of these items gone? It was even when I was looking at the various armor guides. Like, I look back and I think the level 5 one I did was like back in February even now, and back then I said, there's some of the like one of the Gen 4s is missing, the Defender's missing, the Killer
Hmm.
armor obviously you can't get anymore. So like a lot of the armors have just been snipped out of the game now. The Zook
Yep.
was just like not available either. It's really tough, and I quite like the availability being limited, but it's good to see some of them coming back in some ways. I like that they put them down at level 1 too. I think it's kind of cool, but
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. It's like what I said in that for me is that I think this is the Lighthouse expansion prelude. I think this is
Hmm.
to foreshadow the trader coming and all of that stuff and all the bosses. I don't think we're getting white. I don't think we're getting first iteration streets. I'm definitely a nice guy, believe denier. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm on the other side. I think it's fun to actually have these kind of I don't know, almost little, not feud's the wrong word, but to have like two sides of it. People being like, yeah,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
28th of April, it's gonna be a go. We're gonna get all this secret stuff, and
Healthy,
then other
healthy
people.
debates about the content.
Exactly. Or even just kind of like almost like friendly rivalry from two different camps of saying like, no, it's not gonna happen. Yes, it is gonna happen. I think it's fun as long as people don't take it too seriously. Um, so that's what I think is going to happen. I don't know whether it's trying to remove the electronics from people's stashes. It kind of makes sense, I suppose, but I'm not sure. I mean, typically I tend to be more of uh, the mindset of, well, I'll just sell the electronics to people who want to do the parts as if they're so
Yeah.
expensive. That's
Which
normally
is
where I end
yeah,
up. Yeah.
which is what some people are doing at a very high cost. When
Oh,
you
because of
have stuff
the
that
fees.
yeah, so like okay, so for instance, like a lot of the high level electronics I get pretty often because I play a lot of Lighthouse. So they're all over the place on Lighthouse. So seeing things like triple and quadruple in price on some of these, I'm like, this morning it was before I even knew that there was a barter. I was like, oh, this must be a barter for something because why would it be almost 320K
Hmm.
for a transmitter, right? Like I usually sell this for like 88K. So I'm confused right now. And then chat's like, oh, that's for a Reaper. Oh, that's for this. Oh, and then I was like, wait, what? So I started looking through everything. And then Airwings have been saying that they've even made changes since this morning. And they've added limits to some of the items. And then also they removed some of the barters that they originally had, like the Gen 4 and the Fleer. So they're currently in there trying to see like whatever they're trying to achieve, they're managing it even as we
Mhm.
speak. So
See, that's kind
even
of interesting. Yeah, I saw
mm-hmm.
some people post that the one of the thermals, maybe it was the flare, I'm not sure. There was a comment that somebody said, "Oh, I think that's already gone." It's interesting that they're micromanaging that so strongly. I don't know. I don't really know how to read into that particularly because, as a lot of people have said, it doesn't really seem to have been a giveaway of free stuff, or as you said, to be like an end of wipe event because the stuff's not really cheap. But
Mm-mm.
they're doing something. They're trying to do something. But they've also been fiddling maybe with the spawn rates too. I've not played, so I don't know. But I've seen a few anecdotal posts of people saying that there's a lot more tech stuff spawning as well. So if the rarity has been decreased on these things, then that will also have an
I,
effect as those things flood into the economy too.
true,
So
very true. Yeah.
so it could be an interesting one. You know what? Sometimes I would love to be BSG and just to be able to just change the spawn rate, see how quickly it affects the market. Change this barter, see how quickly it affects the market because you actually have all the data and you can see when you change the rate and then how quickly that affects supply and demand in real time. Like, dude, that'd be so awesome. But yeah, that's just me
Yeah.
nerding out.
Well, I think just one thing to add on to the end of that. I think it's or how crazy it is to see how much influence creators have because when you have people like Willers and Landmark and Gingy and if there's something that happens right at their time slot, they'll say something, and then all of a sudden you have 20,000 people
Hmm.
all going exactly to the flea
Yeah.
market to buy or going to the flea market to sell. And that is a crazy change to the market almost instantly, right? So like Willers does this thing where he for fun will buy all of one ammo, right? Just to like mess with the market and like show how quickly things change in the market. And it's just really interesting to see how much influence creators have too, because if you're one of those people that don't play around the time some of the big creators play, you're not going to notice as much of an impact as when they sign on and all of a sudden, 16,000 people are watching them, and then they make an adjustment and then everyone's like, oh, hurry, go make that adjustment, hurry. Landmark said to sell it. And everyone's just like, selling everything that they have for certain prices. So that's also really interesting to see.
Yeah, it is. I think I've definitely seen in some airing videos. I know he's in the chat at the moment, listening as well.
Hmm.
But looking at the marketplace and going through and saying, well, Landmark said at this point that this was good, and then you can see on the price charts, doink, up it went, like the MP7
Yeah.
or some rounds for the MP7 or whatever. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
happened in the past. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So yeah, dude, I love all this stuff. I love all the lore stuff. It's so good. I just really enjoy having the backing to the updates. Yeah, adding Lighthouse Trader and the bosses and whatever. But I like having this like ongoing story. It's so much more compelling for the community. I'm really pleased that they've gone down this route. It's awesome. I
Hmm.
think. Yeah, I think it's sick.
Yeah, and I want to say that what they're doing is potentially, so if you think about it, electronics are like kind of in demand. I don't know about now at current prices. Maybe things need to settle out a bit. Because part of that too is when they first pushed the update, there was no limits, as Airwing said, on them. So
Yeah.
if you were
Yeah.
like one
Hmm.
of the first people to market, essentially, you were like, "Oh, I can get a Zuck for under 1,000 rubles, and there's no limits on it, so you could just go on the market and buy whatever the barter was, because the prices weren't inflated at the time, right? So you could just like completely fill your stashes with X grids
Yeah.
and Zuck. So that was like
Yeah.
probably a quick change. I'm sure exactly what you guys talking about. There was some like streamer effect where they just noticed a sudden all the supply of whatever barter item was gone off the market. But
Yeah.
what I wonder is what they're gonna do now, because let's just assume that they up the spawn rate of the tech items. If after this event's over, if they're just gonna like diminish it to like 0.1%, of like spawn rate for tech items. And then the trader comes in on the 28th, which is a Thursday, which is a part of the white conspiracy. But anyways, and then he wants all these high electronic items, but they're like extremely, extremely hard to find.
Definitely could happen. It definitely could happen. I mean, I was even this is pure speculation, but I was
Uh-huh.
speculating that some of the good items will disappear off the regular traders and will end up only on the Lighthouse Trader. Things like the Flare
Yeah.
and the Repire and some of those, right? And you'll need to either take items to him, or alternatively, you could have something where he's selling the high tier electronics items, find in raid. Maybe they get removed out of the intel center, and then I don't know, but you have to get them from him to then do the barter with Skier or something. I don't know. It's like almost a requirement to actually go there and get the item and bring it out. Maybe they make the secure container bannable, or that you can't put items from him in the secure container for some reason. They do it a blanket, or maybe he's got a special flag or whatever, which
Hmm.
means you'd need to
Hmm.
survive with the items from him to then do the barters with the regular traders because those items aren't available anymore. I don't know. I was thinking about all the ways that it could go. So we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see.
I just think that, and maybe I'm alone in this, but in my opinion, it has to be worth it. Like, the barters can't be like these barters. You know what I mean? Like, why would anybody bring in 1.1 million worth of loot to possibly die to a boss who's guarding the lighthouse? And
Right.
how Tarkov community is. The first thing that's going to happen when we get the in-game trader is we're going to have whole squads of people day and night camping the ins and outs of getting there. They don't care about the trade. They don't want the trade. They just want to they want to uh bully people trying to get the trade. You
Right.
know? That's going to happen. So you have all of these obstacles you have to get through to get to the trade. Then you get the trade and you still have to make it out alive. No one's going to bring that much loot. Like, the trade would have to be like really worth it. So I'm just hoping that this is not like too much of a foreshadowing of like what the barters are going to be like, because I just feel like it's going to be something that's going to become pointless. And I'm really excited for the trader. I'm very, very excited for the trader.
Yeah.
I just want it to be done correctly, because
Yeah.
I want to stay excited about the trader. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
For
I
sure.
want to actually bring in stuff and trade it and be excited about it. If I'm going to die to somebody camping that area, I want to be frustrated about it. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, well, it's whatever. Like, it wasn't really worth it anyways, So that's my
Yeah.
only hope.
There's a lot of questions around how that's gonna work, because do the items have to be found in raid? Because that would make it even like more difficult. Like, good God. I mean, and then when you buy them or trade for them, are they found in raid? Like, I'm assuming not. And the other interesting part is if they're not found in raid, and if you can fit the items in your secure container, you probably wouldn't like. I'm assuming that the items that you're gonna get are gonna be not be able to go in a secure container. Like for example, flares can go in a secure container. I don't think like helmets can. But I don't know. For me, there might be something kind of weird about just doing runs over and over to get to the trader and get out, but you're never really like losing the contents of the trade in your container. I don't know.
Mm.
That part's a little bit of a question mark for me. So I'm kind of curious to see what they do around that because that's going to be an interesting balancing thing. Because there could be a possibility where it's just you just do suicide runs over and over until eventually you make it out. I don't know.
You've got in your minds the 16 hatchlings running across the lighthouse
I
bridge,
just
they're
I
all
don't
going
know.
through. There's 4 squares
Joke
of
about
barter
that, dude.
items in the
That would
alpha.
actually happen, dude, and they'd all be above level 50. So don't joke about that, dude. I could totally see that.
Yeah.
We
Oh
literally
gosh.
seen that in Interchange when graphics cards went through the roof. Was it last wipe or the wipe before? It
Mhm.
was literally like if you went in, you were the only geared person if you went in with gear and Interchange, dude. It was just like SJ6, 3TB, a bunch of men in chonies and a hatchet, dude, and just like gobbling up everything into their containers. It was like crazy. It was like hungry, hungry hippos in Interchange. And then when you would kill them, you'd get nothing.
Yeah, and half the time they're just disappearing round the back of a corner as
Oh
you get
yeah,
there.
dude. Oh yeah.
Yeah. The other interesting part is in a lot of these like RPG games, or I shouldn't say a lot, but some of them you can like kill traders or kill NPCs, right? And it has like serious consequences to the game, right? So I
Hmm.
wonder if like if in that raid you can just murder the trader and just be like, sorry boys, no trades for you today.
Yeah.
Like, could you
If you
go
Well,
done
and
it
loot him?
correctly.
I was even thinking about the fact that like, why is there a boss guarding him?
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of thrown out there, but I haven't seen a ton of people go in depth about like why. Like, why is there a boss guarding him? Like, we're gonna have multiple bosses on the map, but like, why is one guarding Lighthouse unless maybe you can kill him?
I thought was it confirmed previously that you can kill him? I have a
I want to say
vague
so.
recollection that you
Yeah.
Was it?
actually I think it might be.
Okay,
I'm
I'm not
I'm
sure about that.
I would say I'm probably 80%, 70 or 80%. I feel that that happened at some point. Um, that it was confirmed that you could kill him, and so but it would have a massive impact on your rep. Now I don't know how that obviously don't have PMC Karma or anything yet, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure exactly what that's going to
Mm.
mean, but that would be kind of interesting. There were some other random theories that were going around about with the Lighthouse Morse code as well, that maybe you could only go there as a scav, which seemed unlikely because I'm not sure how that would function. Or maybe you have to Morse code with a flashlight, like at the lighthouse or whatever, to not get gunned down on the way across the bridge, something like that. Like, there's so many things
Mm.
that could happen. Can you imagine though? Because it wouldn't give us any information about that, and people just sat there with flashlights testing out different code patterns until eventually you don't die. I can imagine that. It'd be like the
Yeah.
questing system, before the wiki was
Mm-hmm.
around. So yeah,
That'd
there's a lot
be.
of scope for all sorts of weird shenanigans, but I think
Mm-hmm.
you can kill him, and I think that's the whole point. But I guess hmm, I hope that they do some kind of risk reward with it, that it's not always worth killing or that it's never worth killing him, because
Right.
both of those are just kind of boring. There's always got to be some kind of give and take. We've talked about this about Scav Karma in the past, where it's just never really worth shooting other scavs, so no one does it, and it's just kind of dull. So I like there to be an option, or maybe hard choices. You go there, and it's if you kill him, you get one thing, or if you don't kill him, you get another thing, but you give up something in return. That's the ones that I like. Make people choose between two things that they want both of, and they have to give one up. Those are the hard choices that
Yeah.
make people really think and make the game interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah. I would say maybe something that they can do is um to tie it to your level of trader and maybe make it just like really drastic. So you finally get max level traders and then you go and you kill trader and now you only have ragman 2, mechanic 2, skier 2, and you would have to like some way make that back, whether it's by trades, and every time you do a successful trade with him, it ups your trader level, even if it wasn't like specifically by rep, because this is how I see scav karma. if you're at 5.9 and under, there's no benefit to not killing scavs for good loot or good gear because you're only losing 0.1. It's nothing. You're literally like you get that from extracting, right? So like there's not really a whole lot of incentive to not kill scavs underneath max level. Now, when you're max level, you don't get killed by bosses. You're kind of roaming around, chilling. You get, some perks to it. But as soon as you kill a scav after that, you go under no matter what. Because I was at 7.4 and I killed a player scav. It was in defense, by the way, guys. I don't promote scavs killing scavs. It was in defense. They're trying to bully me on VoIP, and I killed one. And I went from 7.4 down below 6 again, right? So I was under max right away. And how I believe that's how it is, right? No matter how high you are, right? You could have 8 and you're going to go below. So then I'm like contemplating, like, this is not going to be worth it for me. But when you're under that, there's not a whole lot of incentive not to kill other scavs. You know what I mean? I don't feel like the penalties are too harsh. What do you guys think about that? I don't want to get off on like a side tangent. Correct me if we are, but what are your guys' opinions on that?
I'm not. I don't know. I think it's just the fact that you. I do take your point about the extracts because you do get quite a lot from them. But once you've taken them a couple of times, then it's kind of hard to. You don't get as much as you did right at the beginning because it's halving, halving, halving. And I think there's a little bit of karma that comes back after maybe a day or something, but it goes down to a really small amount. So I mean, point one is then like 10 successful scav extracts, which I guess is all right. But I think the problem is more the fact that getting to 6 rep, which I did just for interest, really is not worth it. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
more of the problem because
Yeah.
after I got up above 6, I never really use it. You have to go defense specifically. I wish those items showed up on the flea for people who had plus 6 plus, because then if you were buying
Mm-hmm.
random items, then it would just come up. Oh, Fence has got an item there, but you have to specifically visit his page,
Right.
Yep.
watch the item, refresh the thing. It's just I look through all the most of it's junk. So you go,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this, and most of it is it's going to make you about 10K at most, right? So you go through and you go, oh, well, there's a mask there that I know I can barter for a packer. Okay, fine. Well, it's 3K. Fine, I get one of those. Or I've got some round frame sunglasses. Well, I could use that the ANA M2 rig barter, that kind of thing. Oh, it's going to save me 7 grand. That's the
Mm-hmm.
problem that I have with it. It's so tiny. It's not even really worth visiting his page most of the time. So I wish that
Mm-hmm.
it came up there. So that's kind of a side point. But I don't know. I kind of feel the other way around. I think that point one is quite a lot after you've used the extracts quite a bit. And in the grand scheme of things, it takes a while to get that back. Doing 10 raids is really painful. Actually, I killed a scav 1 or 2 times while I was on the grind up, and having to do 10 more raids with my scav, I was like, oh, that's a real pain. And the fact that it's tied to the scav timer too, and then also the scav case as well,
Yeah.
there's an economic impact. So I don't know. I don't know. I think that it's probably, well, I think there's just not enough benefit. That's probably the issue. There's not enough benefit to being above 6 to make people really want to stay there, and that's the deal. Because you think, well, I may as well kill someone for good loot because I'm not really using the benefit from level 6 anyway, and yeah, it affects my
Mm-hmm.
times a little bit, but it doesn't really matter once you're into the sort of 4 5s. It doesn't really make much difference, and that's kind of that's where I stand on the topic.
I think after hearing you say that, I agree too that like level 6 really isn't worth it. There's many things that I think would actually be easy to implement that would make Scav Karma level 6 worth it. And even make people who are non-scavers, right? Because there's people who just don't scav at all. They never use their scav, they never will use their scav. It'll make those people actually care about using scavs, which will put more scavs into the game, and it'll also make people want to level them up.
Yeah, we talked last time. I had a kooky idea, which was if you get to -10 or something, your timer is really, really long, as we know. It's like 2.5 hours between getting scav. Your moonshine case is completely shot. Your extracts are really expensive, but you get to spawn in as like a mini cultist or something, like with the robe and
Mm,
everything. Would that be really sick? Because then it would
that'd
give
be
some kind of
tight.
benefit for people to do that. Because you do lose a lot for getting into the super negative.
Hmm.
It makes the game a lot harder and more painful in a few different ways. So yeah, I was like, oh, maybe give something to them, and it would be kind of cool. Like you wouldn't have to give them all the crazy loot, right? Because people would just use it and run out every 2.5 hours. It
Yep,
wouldn't be
exactly.
worth it. Yeah, but you
Hmm.
give them something decent for the fact that they've got to wait for so long for it. But give them the sick robes and stuff. People would freak out. It'd be nuts.
Hmm.
So I like that's the thing. I'm always balanced about this stuff. There's always got to be a reward going one way and something that you give up, and then same thing the other way. You get something, but then you have to give up something else, and that's it's always the way that I like these things to be because like we've talked before about roguelike games where you get to certain bosses, and I think was it Slay the Spire, I think that me and Chet were talking about just sort of incidentally, which was you get to certain points within the game and then you get a choice of 3 different items, and all 3 would be amazing for you, but you have to pick one of them, and some of them come with downsides as well. So some of them are better than others, but then you have a downside that comes along with it, and you think, oh, can I? Is it worth? Like, can I mitigate this downside? Is it worth taking the
Yeah.
extra good thing?
You're actually
Um,
having to think about it.
yeah, exactly, exactly. It'd be like, oh, here's a red dot, but you run 2 times faster. Here's a 4 times, 1 times, but everything's normal. Or here's a thermal scope, but you lose 1 health every 1 second. That like completely pulling that out of my ass, but something along those lines. Anyway, I like those kind of choices. I think they're good.
Yeah.
I think they're good. Cool. What else do we have in terms of updates? There was a new gun I think that was teased.
Yeah, so
The
the
go ahead.
Was it like the RSH-12 revolver, I think is the technical term. It's the Astral revolver. Okay, it's the most
Mhm.
Russian freaking thing I've ever seen. Yes, we have Astral assault rifle. Let's make a revolver version of it. I love the Russian like weaponry. Like I don't know. I'm just like I freaking like just the look of the AK. Like some people are like, AR for life, man. I'm just like, that wood grain stock. You know what I'm saying? I don't. Oh yeah. Anyways, so yeah, there was the Astral revolver. There was teases from Nikita's account about trip mines. Apparently, like
Mhm.
another crazy Russian technology. It's like a
Like a
grenade.
throwable thing.
Yes, you can, like, throws a grenade, and then it, like, props itself up by, like, shooting out these little fins, and then it also, like, shoots out trip wires out. So it's like a self-deploying landmine that you can throw, essentially. Maybe it's, like, self-deploying grenade, I don't know, but either way, dude, it's like, "What?" And then Airwing said in a tweet, this was hilarious, when those come out, he's just gonna throw and set up a bunch of them at the D2 wee woo button. So that way anyone tries to go in,
Never
they
have to
just
hear that button
yeah.
again.
Like, dude, that's actually genius, dude.
Everyone's like, if they're not gonna turn off that button, I'm going to.
That's genius. So, and then there was a couple other teases as well from BSG. There was, like, this random piece of metal. It's essentially it's a stock for, I guess it's like the what is it? The RSV. It's like a Russian PDW submachine gun. I think it fires the 9x21 rounds that the shrimp uses. And I
Mhm.
want to say it was in like one of the Call of Duties, like maybe Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 or Black Ops, if any of you remember
Mhm.
one of those. But so that'd be really cool because yeah, I mean potentially a new contender for a P90 slash MP7 and a more use for that caliber because the ammo is actually like BT, I think is like 39 pin, I want to say, which is
Mhm.
like
Took over 60
definitely
flesh as well. Mhm.
yeah, like it's kind of a beefy round, so that'd be a cool gun. And I want to say it's like 900 or 950 RPM, so up there with the MP9, MP7. It could
Mhm.
really it could do some damage, you know.
Yeah, that's it's kind of cracked. I mean, it's probably on par roughly with ACP I guess. So if it has a fast fire rate, then it could be pretty good. Because yeah, ACP is I've just pulled it up now, 70 damage, 38 pen, and then BT for that one is 63 damage, 39 pen. So you get
Okay.
a little bit of better class 4 performance, a little bit. I mean, 38 is pretty good anyway, to be fair, and a little bit less flesh. But I mean, it's pretty damn good, right? I mean, the
Mhm.
frag chance actually maybe makes a difference because it's 20% frag chance, whereas on ACP it's 1%. So you don't get any fragmentation with ACP.
Mm.
Whereas 1 in 5 shots, you get an extra 50% damage, which probably makes roughly, I don't know, 12 or something. I don't know, maybe less than that. Yeah, maybe about 12. So yeah, maybe the average damage actually is slightly higher. So if you're shooting somebody in the
Dang.
legs, it might even be better, or just spraying at them, hitting them in the stomach and stuff could make the difference. Could make the difference.
I've been
That's
using the shrimp a lot, and it's been dropping some very thick people. I've been
Really?
happy with it. Mhm.
Yeah, because I started using. I'm not really a pistol user. I've been using the 5.7 a little bit. I've been trying to actually learn Lighthouse. I mean, me and Church had talked about this. I was shared my opinion on it on the map a million times in the fact that all the other maps play beautifully. Lighthouse plays like a complete dog for me, and so it just makes me not want to go there. But because
Mhm.
of all the stuff that's happening, I'm like, God, I guess I better go and learn the stupid thing because otherwise, all these traders are going to appear, and the bosses everywhere, and the map's quite hard anyway. And if all the traders and the bosses arrive, and I'm like, right, so where's the road camp then? It's gonna be a bit awkward. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, so I've started running a bit of the old sniper 5.7 loadout, which has been working all right, and that actually, you know what, that's pretty good too because yeah, it's not guffed like the 9mm rounds this wipe. So you've actually got something that's decent in there because SS190 is pretty decent, pretty good. But yeah,
Mhm,
BT's even better than that. So
mhm.
I think yeah, the shrimp's underrated. I think it's kind of hard to get BT because you have to buy it in those like eight round boxes. It's really
Uh,
annoying. Or can you just
no,
buy it straight from the trader?
yeah, I think it's a 120 cap, I believe. You can buy
Oh, that's not
BT at a
bad.
time, which isn't
Okay,
bad at
I
all,
haven't looked for
especially
ages.
depending on how many magazines you're gonna be running,
Mm,
which, I mean, you don't need to run a ton, you know? Well, in my opinion, you don't need to run a ton. I've been running with the DVL a lot on Lighthouse. I've been running DVL shrimp, and it's been putting in work. So
yeah.
I'm wrecking level 4. I've even wrecked Korans and Gazelles as well, which is funny that it only has 39 or what is it, 38 or 39 pen because I've been thoraxing multiple people with level 5 and still wrecking them. So it's pretty strong. Um, but at the same time, if you're using the 5.7, it's essentially tied because you're getting 2 less rounds that are more powerful. And the 5.7, you get 2 more rounds that are a little bit less powerful, but both are going to be putting people down for the most part,
Yeah,
especially if you shoot
exactly.
them in the
Actually,
face.
yeah, it's actually closer than I remembered it being. Yeah, because it's two less pen, and a bit less damage. But through class 4, you can two shot them. That's
Hmm.
fine. But I mean, the 5.7 does feel nice to use. But yeah, it's a weird gun because it's the only one until this one's been kind of teased. It's the only
Hmm.
weapon that uses that round. So it's a bit of a strange one, but yeah, we'll see. I like adding the extra rounds and extra guns. I quite
Oh
like having
yeah.
new
Mhm.
calibers. It's neat because I learn
Yeah.
something, right? If it's not in
Mhm.
EFT, I know nothing about it, which is basically the way it goes. And
Yeah.
it's like church saying, "Oh, this weapon was in Modern Warfare or whatever," and like I might even have used it in a Modern Warfare in like the campaign or something, but
Mhm.
you just feel like you don't really learn anything about any of them, right? It's
Yeah,
like it's
100%. I get
I
what you're
remember
saying.
playing Modern Warfare not even knowing that 545 and 762 was a thing.
Mhm.
And I mean, even remember like Shroud learned about that at one point, when he was
Yeah.
after being really, really big, right? Because you just never need to know the difference. You just go, oh, it's the green bullets or the red bullets when you're playing
Mhm.
PUBG, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. So yeah, I enjoy the process. It's good. I enjoy learning about this stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting one. So we've got that to come. It's gonna be pretty decent.
So
Um,
I
yeah,
got
what were you gonna say, Church?
I got a something to throw a curveball at you.
Oh,
So, Ghost, I got a question for you. Tell me about. So let me preface this a little bit. So
Okay.
I sort of I don't know, and if I don't know if I'm like just this is just my own false perception, but I sort of like feel like I see this narrative or like perspective amongst streamers, like, and specifically those who are parents, and it's like it's almost like some weird like, oh, you're too old or something. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm also curious to hear you talk about what it's like being a content creator as a father. And I know Giga
Mhm.
is recently a new father, and I'm the single one. And God, just thinking about having kids of my own and raising a family while doing some other stuff, just like, oh, thank you. So yeah, if you could talk a little bit about that, like, what's that experience like?
What was your first part of the question? You're saying that it was like you're saying that some people are saying it's like a negative thing?
Yeah, it's like I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like
Like you don't have to give names, but like what is something that you've heard that you feel like you were wondering about?
like what do you mean? Like someone said something?
Yeah, like
You mean?
do you feel like a lot of times people feel like they become content creators after they become parents and then they kind of regret it because they feel like they would have more time if they weren't parents? Is that kind of like what you mean?
No, it's more like people
You said
seem
something about
to
being too old.
have
That's what it was.
yes, people seem to have like a negative connotation, I guess is the word, towards like content
like
creators or
themselves.
streamers. No, towards the so, like, let's say, actually, I don't wanna use any examples.
So like it
Just
would
dug
be like
yourself a hole.
somebody saying like, I would admire Ghost, but he still plays games like a kid and makes
Yes,
a career off of that.
thank you. Yes, yes,
Okay, okay,
exactly,
okay. Sorry, I was
exactly.
trying to understand the first point so I can go into like what I was gonna say. Okay, that
Mhm,
makes sense. Yeah, that's I mean, that's super, super prevalent, especially in America, because in America, this is fairly new. Whereas in like, let's say I was born in South Korea, it wouldn't be, where
mhm,
kids are literally raised to be creators and raised to be gamers and raised to be because they've seen that it's worked for a much longer amount of time, at least been more prevalent. And so I feel like you're constantly, anytime though, that you kind of get outside of like the American dream, which also EU models, Canada models, and many other countries model. I just call it the American dream because that's what it is. It's, you know, go to school, get good grades. You need a super big house that probably most of the rooms you're not going to use. You
yeah,
need a family. You need a specific dog. You need to make sure that you go to your 9 to 5 up until you get to a certain age and then you retire. Right? It's like that.
right,
That model has been around for so long, and so any type of like going against the grain on that, people don't like it. And people will say like, well, it's because you're not mature and it's because you're not successful and it's because you're not, and there's all these things that are actually false, but that it's better for them if they think that's what the truth is, in my opinion, because many times when people come at me that way, which is many people, I'm talking like old best friends, I'm talking like
mhm,
family members, I'm talking like
yeah,
there's a lot of people that come against you as a creator. And so you're not only like going through trying to break through the ceiling of like becoming a creator, which is extremely difficult and extremely competitive, but you're also breaking through the ceiling of like proving yourself to people in your sphere who think you're just playing video games and you're just a little kid who doesn't grow up and you're making an excuse that you're making money doing it, when there's people that, not getting into details, you're making more money than that are working in 95 who went to school for an engineering career and are making less than somebody else who's a content creator. Um, but I think that's also comes to the fact of, a lot of times people are very shallow with their perspective of success, and success is very subjective, but a lot of people don't get that and they never get that. And so they spend their lives in like this, prison of a job, thinking that like, well, I would rather die successful, when really success has nothing to do with how much money you make. And so I think, once that becomes more ingrained in people, it'll be more allowed to do whatever you want to make money as long as you're happy. And I think that's kind of like forsaken. The happiness factor is like, well, who cares about that? You need to make money and be successful. And it's just like, well, okay. So, but being a parent and being a content creator, I'm very like, when it comes to parenting, I just think that you just do what you do, except you have kids. And I think there's a lot of people that mm, treat kids like a death sentence when it comes to like, well, I got to get my last hike in because I'm going to be a parent. And it's like, why can't you go hiking with your kid? Like, oh, got to get my last I'm going to throw out the Xbox when the little boy gets here. And you're like, well,
yeah,
how
yeah,
come? Like, just game with him when he gets older. And the thing that definitely does have to change though is you're not allowed to be selfish anymore. And being a content creator is, I compare it a lot of times to being like when I used to like train for bodybuilding. Is being a bodybuilder is a very, very selfish sport. Very selfish. It's very hard to be in a relationship with anybody, even to have like really close friends, unless they're also bodybuilders, because everything in your life from when you wake up to go to sleep is based around you.
yeah,
When I eat, it's what I eat. Everything is based around like, I need to work out at this time. I need to have these supplements, and you only do things that cater and are built around what you're currently doing, and it's very selfish. And that's okay if you don't have plans of like hanging out with people, being with a significant other, guy, girl, doesn't matter, or being a parent, because kids, if you're a parent, dude, you need to be a parent, And
mhm,
I think the sad part is there's a lot of content creators who are trying to make it and are neglecting their children, and they're going to regret that someday, because your kids are still going to be there when you're not a streamer or when you're not, like, when you're a failed streamer or not a streamer anymore, and they're still going to be there and they're going to remember that. And instead you could be being a parent and be a streamer. I think it's totally necessary. I think that time management though is something that needs to be focused on. So, if your child doesn't sleep at night, maybe you need to not stream at 5 in the morning because you're not sleeping all night. And, instead of putting the blame on the child who has no control if they're sleeping or not, you need to just you're an adult, put on your big boy pants and change your schedule, make content in a way that is so that you can spend time with your family because, and I think it does come into play with like what people value, but family is like,
Sure.
top of the totem. And I think it should be because like I said, your career is your career, but why are you even doing your career if it's not for your family? Like many times parents are saying like, well, I'm doing this for them. So you're neglecting them to do something for them when really all they want is your time and love and affection. And you're gaming for 16 hours a day and neglecting
Mhm.
your child, like it just doesn't make sense in that regard, but it is hard. It is difficult. But it's something that's definitely you're able to do and manage. And there's things that I adjust all the time that I have to. That's a lot of times I don't want to because I'm a regular human and I am selfish at times. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the park. I want to do, I have a video that I need to put out. But then there's times where I have to be like, yo, I have to post on my YouTube. Hey guys, we're gonna drop the video tomorrow instead. I'm gonna finish editing it because I'm taking my girls to the park. Like sometimes that stuff happens if you don't plan ahead, but planning ahead is very very key when it comes to having more people than just yourself as a content creator because it is more than full time. You know what I mean? Like there's that joke where you leave your 9 to 5 to work 24/7, and especially in the beginning stages of building, you know, uh your business because that's what it is. It's very very time consuming, especially if you're not good with managing your current time.
Yeah, and I liked what you said earlier when you were talking, "Well, what do I do when I'm a dad and I don't wanna play the Xbox?" Well, you just play for your kid, like, you include them
Mhm.
in that experience, and it's like I remember when Apex was, like, at its peak and I was playing with some friends and they were, going along their path of being a content creator, and one of them just got, like, really depressed, man, and he was just like, "Man, I'm about to turn 24, and I'm not Shroud yet," And it's like, dude,
Mhm.
Shroud is Shroud, you know what I mean? Like, he's got a completely different life experience versus yours, and, like,
Mhm.
having these, like, unrealistic expectations and this is what I'm trying to get at is, like, some people, I think, could judge you, for example, and
Mhm.
say, "Oh, he's still trying to be a content creator," like you were saying earlier, and he has a family, like, what is he doing? And it's just like,
Mhm.
what are these, like, unrealistic expectations going on?
Yeah.
If you're not 21 and, like, signed by, like, FaZe Clan and you're a nobody, like, what is going on, dude?
Yeah. That's a very, very good point. And I think that comes into play. Okay, so I'll give you an example. It was even more difficult for me
Mhm.
because I chose creating content full time over being a nurse, and I already went to school for 6 years.
Wow.
So I was at the door of both,
Yep.
and it would have been much. Okay, let me have to say how I'm going to word this. It would have been much easier to make the choice, not to become a nurse. Nursing is very difficult, and all I love all of our nurses and doctors. I have many family members who are nurses and doctors. It is one of the hardest jobs in the world, no doubt. It would be easier though to choose. I already went to school for 6 years for that thing, right? So it would have been easier for me to appease all the people around me and like be successful, right? Because I'm a very well paid RN. And so but the thing is that wasn't deep down what was gonna bring me fulfillment. And at the end of the
Mhm.
day, that's the most important thing. Like we need to make sure that we're just like we're loving on other people, that we're loving on ourselves. And the thing is do my kids is it best for my kids to be around somebody who is, like I said before, in like some sort of, the prison of the 9 to 5, just so I can like make ends meet when there's other ways to do it, right? There's a
For
million
sure.
ways to make money. So it's like, but the problem is people don't want to put in the work that you need. Like everyone wants to edit videos, but nobody wants to learn how to edit videos, right? But you want to have a nice edited video, like, but I
Yeah.
also don't want to pay an editor. It's just like, you what? Like that
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
make any sense. Like you have to learn how to do to those crafts and tools. Like they don't come easy. Like the fact that you're editing content, you had to learn how to do that. Like, but people just want to like, they don't want to do any of the work. So it definitely becomes hard with like being a parent because like I said, you're kind of against the wall against a
Mhm.
lot of people. Um, but my advice to many streamers now that I've been doing this for a little while is you have to let it go. You have to let go of other people's expectations of you, even if they are your parents, even if they are your siblings, even if they are your closest friends. You have to let them go. You cannot allow your life to be governed by what other people expect of you. You will live your life miserable. You will let depression creep in. You will let anxiety creep in. You will let stress be on your shoulders constantly. you have to figure out what brings you happiness, what brings you worth, and you have to chase it. And there's going to be people that don't stick around, and there's going to be people that do. But at the end of the day, like it means nothing if you are depressed, if you are filled with anxiety, and if you're filled with stress, but you're doing things that appease other people. It means nothing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I like try to look at it. You know, there's going to be people that are going to make fun of me, but it doesn't matter to me because I'm happy, right? Like I'm fulfilled in what I'm doing and I know that I'm on the path that I want to be on. So like, cool, you know, I think you're too old to play video games. Okay. Like it did nothing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
sweet,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm not going to get into like the toxic part of it. And there's some people that do, and that's fine if that's their own prerogative. I'm not going to go into like, oh yeah, well, how much money do you make? Like, I don't care. That's the thing. Like, I don't care how much money you make. When I talk to people and I engage with people, church, Giga, I'm not asking you guys what your political beliefs are, what your religious beliefs are, where you guys work, how much money you guys make, because I don't care. I want to know like what makes you feel the way that you feel. What do you think about certain things when it comes to like the core of who you are? Like,
Hmm.
I want to get to know you as a person. All that other stuff is extra to me. Like, those are choices that you're making because you feel like they're the best choices for your personal life. You know what I'm saying? That stuff doesn't matter to me. Why do I care about how much Giga and you make? What? Like, how am I going to determine if you guys are successful based on that, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's a weird concept to me, but it's one that a lot of people are plagued with. And if I could say anything to anybody who's just starting this is one, count the cost of content creation because it's high. It's a lot higher than a lot of people talk about. And then two, you have to let go of other people's expectations over your own life.
Yeah, dude. Super powerful stuff, man. Like, you were going on for a second. I was like, God, don't cry, church. Don't cry. Stay strong. Feel strong, man. But no, dude. Like, man, it's it's crazy, dude. It really is crazy. The expectations others sets for ourselves, and then we embody those. And yeah, I love everything you said, man. And it's awesome to hear you. How did you get to this place in your life? Because I'll speak from experience. I definitely did not think a lot of these things you were saying before, you know, when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everyone, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but some people get there one way or another, and I'm curious how eventually they will, I think, anyways. But I'm curious how you got there because I suspect that. But let me stop talking and let you answer the question.
Oh, no, you're good. Go ahead. What do you suspect?
Um, that it was not an easy journey. You know, I mean, when you make a leap like this into content creation, I believe is that you're investing in yourself. You know, you're banking on yourself, and that's like a really, dude. That's like not an easy thing to do. For some people, it may be. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'll speak for myself. I don't think that's an easy thing to do.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't think it's easy, and there's many times, even at this moment, right? Like, I'm saying all this, but sometimes I have to say this to myself. You know,
Hmm.
sometimes I have to encourage myself. Sometimes I have to motivate myself because if we rely on motivation entirely, we'll fail. If I rely on feeling good, I'll fail because there's many times where I wake up not feeling good. There's many times where I wake up not feeling like making a video, and I have to make one still. But the thing is realizing what we ultimately want to do.
Hmm.
And I think what happened for me was, without going into too much detail, I've had a second chance at life many times. I've had too many second chances. And I got to a place where I'm just like, do I want to do it safe or do I want to do it's worth it?
Yeah.
And do that I came to a crossroads. I came to a place, especially with like in the midst of the beginning stages of COVID happening. I had to, which was kind of one of the hardest places to make the decision. But what it did is it put me in a corner and it made me make a decision. And I just really got filled with like, we only have one life. And I started thinking back on my past and realizing that like I've had way too many second chances. And I just didn't care anymore. Like, it took a couple people that were close to me hurting my feelings and saying
Hmm.
things that weren't fun for me to realize that I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
in a good way though. Like, I have been working for other people my entire life and I'm done. I'm done working for other people. I'm done working a 9 to 5 for somebody that I don't have a share in the company, right? Even though my last current boss was amazing and I love him and I'm actually good friends with him IRL. In general, I was tired for working for other people's dreams and aspirations when I have my own. You know what I mean? Like, and the thing is, there's gonna be people that say I'm happy with working a 9 to 5. I want all the time in the world for family and I want all the time in the world for hobbies and whatever else. I think that's fine. I think that if that's what brings you happiness and fulfillment and purpose, then I think you should do it. For
Yeah,
me, it wasn't.
absolutely. Yeah.
For me, I was thinking like, I have dreams, dude. I have aspirations. I have things that I want to chase, but this is the only thing that's in my way is the American dream. And
Mhm.
so I was like, the faster I can kick this to the curb, the faster I can start doing this other thing, starting from the ground up. And I actually heard a podcast that was between this other dude who had a near death experience. I would have to find it. I forget his name. And he was talking to Gary V, which most people know who Gary V is. Very, very inspirational dude, and has beat many odds in his own life. And they were all talking together. And they asked Gary V, what was the defining moment for you? We've heard
Mhm.
the story of you starting at the bottom. We've heard the story of you having no money. We heard the story of you eating, poop sandwiches for years before you got to where you're at. We've heard all that. But what was like your defining moment? And he said, I burned all the boats. He's like, I didn't allow myself to look at plan B. And then they're like, why not? And he's like, because there wasn't one. He's like, I literally killed plan B. He's like, and then plan A was all I had left. And so there was nothing for me to do but to give plan A my all because it was the only plan that was left for me. So I happened to hear that podcast. Actually, the crazy part is I was cleaning up the bar. It was the end of the night. I was bartending at the restaurant I was working at. I was cleaning up the bar, and I remember I remember it so clear because it was such a pivotal moment in my journey. As I remember placing bar mats on
Mhm.
on the side, cleaning, and I just remember sitting there and I'm listening to it in my headphones. And he said the burn the boats part, and I just felt like my core shook. I was like, I have a plan B. Now the deciding factor for me is what is my plan B? Is my plan B content creation or is my plan B nursing? And which one am I going to burn? And so I sat there with that thought in my head and it festered for a while. I didn't go home and be like, screw all of you. I hate school. Nurses suck. Like it wasn't anything like that. It was something that I sat with, but it shook my core because I never thought of it that way. And Airwing saying in the chat the exact same thing. He already knew what I was going to say because maybe that's something that affected him. But it's
Yeah.
a very, very powerful podcast when they were talking because it was something so subtle, something so simple, but something so undiscovered in my life. And so that was a huge moment for me, And then I talked to my girl about it and I talked to some family members, some trusted friends, and I was trying to get some feedback, gauge
Mhm.
where people were. And all of that wasn't positive, right? Because people are just like, no, 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 what are you doing? No, coach, just
Yeah.
be a nurse, dude. Chill. Like, I don't know what you listen to, but don't listen to that anymore and go be a nurse. So, and then there's people who are like, hey, I don't care what you do. Whatever brings you the most happiness and fulfillment, do that. Right. And so for me, I think that's honestly the podcast, maybe. So if you're asking for like that one moment, I think it was a huge buildup of things, but there was definitely that moment that I remember very clear that I was like, my eyes were like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, so maybe that moment, if I had to say a moment, it was maybe then cleaning up the bar and hearing that.
Dude, that's amazing. I wanna let Giga jump in here.
Hmm.
Oh man, it's such a complicated thing because everybody's experience is so different as well of where they've come from and how they've got to where they are and that kind of thing. And I think for me, my take on the whole thing is like I've always been very I've gone through a very traditional route of just like school and then going into work and that kind of stuff, right? And so it's been a little bit, I would say, a bit less chaotic for me in some ways, just because I never really aspired. Well, me and Chich talked a bit about it when I was talking about the full time stuff. In the podcast where we did talk about that previously, and I'd kind of come up against this choice very very roughly, but it was kind of like I was doing kind of like um, competitive RTS 1v1, and I sort of had the choice of stepping over that hurdle from being kind of the best of the amateurs into the worst kind of level in sort of more professional type scene.
Mhm.
Because I
Mhm.
was into
Yeah.
like the super long story short is I went to one of the UK's big lands and I was playing StarCraft 2 at the time, and I've played a lot of competitive RTS before and got into round of 8, got beaten by some dude in Dignitas, and I was like, this is really it. This is my ceiling here. And I was like,
Mhm.
I either go that way or the other way. But it was too early, right? And you just couldn't really make a stable living in esports, and I just couldn't make that choice. And
Mhm.
so I said, fine, it's just going to continue to be a hobby. And honestly, to this day, I'm still happy with that choice. I still think it was the right choice because what it's then eventually led me to do is to go through that usual route for God knows how many more years after that. And then finally come back and revisit it now when it's much more sensible in a much different environment where the creator economy is booming and there's more opportunity and you don't
Yeah.
just have to be cracked at a particular game, and when that game
Yep.
falls off, that's it, you're done, right? You have to try and transition but you're not good anymore. Like, it's super super rough, whereas
Mhm.
content creation is much more flexible. You can do things in many more different ways. There was not
Mhm.
really an education style to um being, I mean, it wasn't creator, it was pro players back then, and
Yeah.
that's the issue.
Mhm.
It was a pro scene and a tournament scene, and you had to be good, and you'd make prize money, and yeah, there's sponsorships too, but you're part of a pro team, and they
Mhm.
kind of support you, whatever. Whereas like now, it's so different. You can be an educational creator, which is much more up my street. Like I've taught people all the way through school. I used to mentor people in school, mathematics, science, that kind of stuff. I've always done it like as part when I went off to university. I had a whole module which was like teaching in a local school and stuff. Like I've been teaching people my whole life, and I really love
Yeah.
teaching people. I enjoy
Mhm.
it. The thing for me that brings me probably the most satisfaction is the moment when, and you sort of get that in comments on YouTube. So it's close actually. It's close enough anyway. But the moment when you're explaining something to someone and they go, I get it. I get it. And
Yeah.
you give someone that epiphany, like, man, there's
Mhm.
nothing better than that for me. So I've
Mhm.
always loved that. And so yeah, so it's been a little bit less chaotic for me because there's so many people that you hear of with these amazing stories, and you've got an amazing story as well, and Gary V's got an amazing story, and like Harris Heller's
Mhm.
got everyone's got an incredible story. And like I'm so boring in comparison in a lot of ways because like I didn't have to really burn any boats or whatever. I just like slowly,
Mhm.
methodically. I'm like the turtle in the the turtle in the hair. It's like slow plodding my way through, and then I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm going to do this full time, and it's going to be a thing. And then it's like takes me like a year of like slow methodical planning or whatever. But
Mhm.
the point of the whole of this kind of spiel is kind of coming back to what you were saying, Ghost, which is about deciding what you want to do. What's your definition of success? What does that actually mean to you? And what do you want? And really ranking those things in your head and saying, okay, well, if I want these things, then what do I need to do to achieve them? And
Mhm.
for me, family was the number one thing. And for me, the pivotal turning point was the birth of my daughter. She's a year and a half
Mhm.
now, year and a half old,
Yay!
little mini beef. She's very, very cute. But that was the pivotal point for me because, as you said, when you become a parent, you can no longer be selfish. I am incredibly, well, stubborn is sort of the wrong word, but I'm incredibly stubborn when it comes to things I've started. I'm I don't actually usually have. I've probably got the opposite problem to a lot of people. I usually don't have a problem with motivation normally. So if I've started something and I say I'm making these videos on these days, I will do anything to make that happen. And it's almost obsessive in sort of a toxic way in some circumstances, but it's usually quite useful. But anyway,
Mhm.
I had to make the decision to go from 2 videos a week and 3 streams a week down to 1 video a week and 1 stream. And for me, that decision was like that was the critical turning point for me
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
that was incredibly hard for me to make that choice because it would have been extremely selfish for me to try to keep up any kind of schedule because bearing in mind that I was working full time as well.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
to try and continue doing that with like a newborn was impossible and would have put like incredible stress on my wife. And
Mhm.
we lived 3 hours away from family, so there was no one else.
Mhm.
Um, and it was, yeah, also in the middle of lockdown, and I knew I had to make that choice, and I dragged my feet, and I took like 2 weeks to actually finally
Mhm.
admit to myself that this is what I needed to do, and I did it, and I was like, "Okay, fine, we'll pull it back. We'll just chill. We'll see how things go.
Mhm.
We'll see, we need to become stable with our new life and everything first, and then we'll take it from there." And so it was kind of from that point, October 2020, when I then started like replanning and saying, okay, well, is this a thing? Could I get there eventually if I grow in this way and if these things happen, like, is this even possible? And like, yeah, another year went by, and I was like, okay, well, maybe this is actually doable now. Now that the channel's got a bit bigger and there's other
Almost
opportunities, and
52K subs, no big deal.
yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? Like, it all helps. It definitely eases the soul a little bit when the channel gets bigger and things are going well and stuff. It makes the decision a lot easier.
Mhm.
But it was kind of a combination of that, plus I wanted to be back with family. The work I was doing before, wasn't able to I wasn't able to be flexible enough. It was just like it wasn't all working, and I was like, well, I've got myself into a position now where, where it's fine, and I'm we can sort of jump the gap and bridge over. And I think if I spend all my time on it, I think it's going to go really well. I think this is an insane opportunity, and
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not going to be working for somebody else anymore. It's going to be great. And the weird thing for me is that I've never really considered myself a entrepreneur, really. I've never been,
Mhm.
like, super business minded. Like, I'm more of a scientist, if I'm honest,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I've learned, though, that kind of thing probably in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, I would say, maybe
Okay.
5 years. So I've definitely come to it later, and by the time it was about 6 months ago, I was like, "I'm ready to be my own boss. I'm ready to do my own thing.
Come
I'm ready
on.
to throw all of this and just go for it." And so then
Mhm.
that was like proper grind planning. And as I said before, I mean, I'm gonna repeat myself for some of the people who listened to the previous one, but it was like the drops event happened in December. I got picked. I didn't expect to be picked. And I was like, "Right, we're on the grind now, because now that this has happened, there's momentum and we need to keep it up." And so I
Mhm.
did. And so I kept the stream, because the streaming thing is just super hard, right? And but I was like, we're going to do 2 videos a week, and each video takes however many hours to make. And
Mhm.
I just basically didn't speak to friends, didn't speak to family. I spent 6 months, and every single evening it would just be, finish work, help the wife with dinner, bath the baby, put her to sleep, 2, 3 hours of editing, go to bed, wake up, next, 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 day after day. And I was like, dude, I have to take this week at a time, because like this is insane. And
Mhm.
I was like traveling as well, like 2 days. Like, church remembers there was certain times when I was just like AWOL for 2 days, because I was like out of town, like for work and stuff. And then I'd come back. So I'd have like 2 days cut out completely out of the week. The weekends, I was like busy with the little one and stuff. So it was completely insane. But I was like, right, we just have to
Mhm.
do this for 6 months and just get there. And so so it's been one hell of a journey, and that's kind of yeah, that's kind of where we are now. So I'm like so happy to have finally got there and stuff. But it's different, and clearly I'm only just starting out doing it properly. But having the
That's super
two
exciting,
year
dude.
yeah, having the 2 year run up or whatever, it makes it's not like I'm going from 0 subs and going like, right, I'm going to start a channel. This is how it's going to work, right? It's like it's sort of semi proven, and I think that, yeah, can build it from here. But everyone's experience is so different about how this stuff kind of works, and you just need to start. Like, I did this for the longest time just on the side, and I wanted to figure out how a video gets put together, and that's really how it
Mhm.
started. And I was like, well, I may as well just edit some clips for Tarkov, just to see kind of how it functions. And I downloaded a random program. I downloaded Lightworks, because it was the first one that came up when I typed
Yeah.
it into Google. And I have those videos up now. They're the oldest videos on my channel, and they still are there. So you can see right
Nice.
to the beginning of my journey. It's all still online, and those videos are atrocious.
Mhm.
But I'd never used any video editing software before, and the whole process is on my channel, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool, I guess.
Nice, dude. If I could make one interjection about your story, is that sitting here listening, I know that you started it by saying, it's nothing compared to your amazing story, but I would have to definitely disagree with you, dude. I heard right now, what I heard sounds like you have massive consistency, you have a lot of perseverance, and you made one of the hardest choices that a lot of people don't make. You decided to be a good father. It's easy to be a bad parent. And you decided to do all of that while you were continuing to grind. Now your channel's getting bigger. You continued to started to stream. You made sacrifices, which is one of the biggest parts of growing. And not only am I proud of you, but it was an amazing story to hear, dude. And I think that even though some of my parts of my story might sound like I have more flair, I think you have an amazing story as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, yeah, I moved from where we were to where we are now. We're now
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes away from my wife's family. We're an hour away from my side of the family, but they're actually going to be coming closer. So we've got a lot more
Nice.
support. The little one
Mm-hmm.
sees them all the time. Like before, we were 3 hours away, and because of the schedule that we were doing, it just like we couldn't really see people very often. It was super hard, and I didn't want our family life to be like that. And so that was really that's like that was the number one thing. I want to I want everybody to be involved, and I want her to see all of her grandparents while everyone's still around and able and whatever.
Yep.
And I'm going to fit everything else around it so that that works, and I will find a way. Was really the thing. So it depends on what your goal is or your motivation. I think for
Yep.
me, the problem is that I've known too many people who the motivation is just money and just more,
Mm-hmm.
and there's never any end. There's never any kind of like, how
Yep.
much is enough? Like, well, how much do you
Yeah.
need to have?
Yep.
Like, there's the motivation and the goal is just endless acquisition of just stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or money or power or whatever, and it's just,
Mhm.
well, what are you going to do with that exactly? Like that's what matters more than any of the other stuff, really,
Yep.
in my
Mhm.
opinion. So yeah, it's interesting. It's been an interesting journey, and yeah, I mean, it feels like just the beginning of like the next step. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's been
Which is
nuts. It's
awesome.
been nuts. But
Yeah.
yeah, the little one really changed things.
To brag on you, Giga, a little bit. I remember during those 6 months time, you would message me like, "Hey, church, I can do the podcast, but I have to phone in." I was like, "Oh, Giga, you don't have to do this, man. Like, we can skip a week or whatever." He's like, "No, I'm committed. I'm gonna do this." I'm like, "Okay, man. All right. I'm
So
just
I
all
just got a
right."
haircut. I'm showing up.
It's I mean, it's double-edged sword. I think most of the time it works out for the best, actually, that kind of mentality. But sometimes it is bad. Yeah, I mean, I think there's recently, because it's been like doing the full-time thing. I've been so excited about it, and there's like a load of stuff going on. I ended up this week in particular to get like loads and loads of stuff done that I didn't expect to have to do, and it's been
Mhm.
super hard. And but I was like, well, I need to get my stuff done. So finished up doing everything in the day, and then like started at 7 p.m. and just like worked until like 1 a.m. It's like that's not healthy, but
Mhm.
sometimes you just have to do it. Like I'm
Yep.
trying to structure everything so that isn't a requirement. And that's one of the main reasons why I never wanted to be a full-time streamer, because it's incredibly time consuming. Like, I never
Mhm.
wanted that to be the main thing, and then the other things are kind of separate. I want that to
Mhm.
be a piece of the whole puzzle, right?
Mhm.
Because the YouTube thing for me is always, because I looked into full-time streaming, or streaming as a thing first before anything else. Because I think a lot of people do. Because I think, oh well, I can, if I'm playing games, well, I may as well stream as well, blah blah blah. But the more I looked into it,
Mhm.
the more the YouTube side made sense to me, because I
Mhm.
can write a script on the train, and then I can do a recording and then leave it and then come and edit it and then have dinner and then come back and finish it. Right. It's like, for me,
Mhm.
having big blocks, I have to really carve out blocks of time. And it's very hard with, with the baby and stuff. It's, you get interrupted or whatever. So I have to specifically put in blocks of time for that. Whereas like editing and is much more free form in that way, but
Mhm.
it's more like real work, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
sliding scale. Playing games on your
Yeah.
own, and then Twitch is like just here, and then like
Mhm.
being in a 9 to 5 is like down there, and doing
Mhm.
YouTube is somewhere here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not
Mhm.
as fun as being on Twitch live, but it's way better than doing the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is more work than the pure fun of Twitch. So it's like it's a it's a middle ground. I don't know,
Mhm.
but that's where I've ended up anyway. Just in this zone. So YouTube's still going to be the focus, I think, 'cause it just fits better with my life and just the way that I want things to be.
Yeah. It's awesome to hear, dude. Can't wait. I can't wait to see more stuff, and I'm excited for the 100K announcement.
Oh, we'll see, man. We'll see.
I have one other
Uh,
thing on this topic.
Mhm.
So I want to know how you deal with, and maybe you don't deal with this, how you deal with fear of failure. And I can say in my own life that this is something that I just like constant struggle. And I don't know how it's been such a struggle in my life, like what that sprung upon. Maybe some events in my, you know, childhood that caused it. But one of the things, listen to Giga's story of how he's gotten to where he's gotten to, it kind of reminds me a little bit of my own, in that when I was in my teens, man, I just love first person shooters, and I just like I found this. I used to play so many like crappy Korean first person shooter Counter Strike clones, bro. Like
Yeah.
Nexon games, man. They, like Combat R's, like dude, they were so bad, but they were free, and I didn't have
Yeah.
like an amazing PC or
Mhm.
anything, but I loved, I just like
They
loved
were
the first
close
person
enough.
shooters. Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, at one point, I started playing this one called Alliance of Valiant Arms. And my god, dude, I just like I couldn't I was like fixated on the game. I was just like constantly like I would be at school, high school, thinking of strats for like our team and how we could like throw smokes here and deploy and like push the site and take it over. Like I was just obsessed with it. Like
Mm-hmm.
so we got to a point where we were perhaps arguably like the second best team in North America. And the number one team at the time was DEF CON. And there was a announcement from the publisher of the game, IJJI, I think is their name. They were gonna do a like a collaboration with IESF in South South Korea, where it was gonna be like the world esport event for that game, Alliance of
Mm-hmm.
Valiant Arms, and they were to represent like South Korea, Japan, and then they were gonna bring in
Okay.
North America. And so,
Okay.
you know, we saw the team, we're like, dude, like this is it. Like we could potentially do this, you know, because we played in some
Mm-hmm.
like community run tournaments, and depending on if DEF CON was playing our place or not, you know, we may do really well or we may not. But
Mm-hmm.
so I got really excited. I was like, hey, mom and dad, there's this event going up, and if we win, we can go to like, you know, South Korea and could be like, oh my God, South Korea, you're gonna get bombed or something like this.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
terrified because at the time I think there was some very strong political heat going on
Mm-hmm.
with the two. Anyways, so I had to go back and tell my team that guys, I can't go. Like even if we had a chance, and it was like so crushing to hear them be like disappointed, and that it almost like didn't even matter if we played or not, but we still played. But it was just like whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy because now, for those that don't know, DEF CON, one of the players was Skadoodle, and he was the number one sniper in that game, and you know he went to go on to
Mm-hmm.
play for Cloud9 in
Mm-hmm.
CS:GO, and it's like, dang, it's just like looking at him and seeing his like journey. I just like compare myself. I was like, dude, like just one different decision could just been like a completely different life, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something that's like I've never really like known what to do with my life past that point because that was my dream, and then it's just like it's gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always just like defaulted to playing it safe. Like, what's like the least riskiest thing I can do? Oh, bag groceries? Perfect. Sign me up, dude. Sign me
Yeah.
up, you know?
Yeah.
So now that I'm, you know, fast forward a bunch of years, now that I'm working as an editor for Airwing, you know, it's still sort of like sometimes it comes up, it's like, dude, I don't want to let you down, man. Like, you know, may have a bad day or something and whatnot. But how do you deal with the fear of failure? Like, how does that come up in your life and in your content, or is it something that doesn't even bother you anymore?
Oh, there's definitely times where it bothers me. It's not so much the fear of failure. I wouldn't even
Hmm.
label that anymore because I failed so many times. I think it just comes down to failing a lot. Like the more you fail, the more you realize it's not the end. You know what I mean? And so like the only way you fail though is to take risks that you don't know if you're going to be able to fulfill.
Mm.
And the pro the good thing about those risks though, it's kind of like in Tarkov, right? You take really big risks sometimes for things that you really want.
Yeah.
Whether it's like it's a clinching moment where you're trying to complete that quest you've been working on. Like today, I had one of those moments where I'm just like, dude, I need to finish this. I'm so irritated. So like, you know, you do stuff you wouldn't normally do, and
Hmm.
um, but when it's worth it. You know, so like, and then if it's not, then you start over. I kind of see life the same way. So I would say the biggest argument I get from people is not everybody can make money however they want, but I disagree with that. I think that YouTube is a ridiculous resource that teaches people how to make money doing a bunch of random AFK tasks that literally you can be AFK in your brain and make money doing while you do what you want to do, while you learn, while you do things, and you don't have to go to work because now, and I think much of the world has realized this with COVID. I think COVID was a very like a there's a lot of things that COVID was a pain, but there's a lot of things that COVID was a blessing
Hmm.
because there's a lot of the world now realizes that you don't have to go to the office to do what they've been doing. That there's a lot of wasted time in 2-hour meetings when it can get solved in an email. And so what happens is there's all this time now that people are saying like, well, now I have this big slot of time. Should I just binge something on Netflix or should I do something productive and do something that I want to do? And I think that's what it really comes down to is finding something that you can make money, whether it's something you want to do or something you don't want to do. If you want to DoorDash, Uber Eats, Lyft, Drive, whatever the case is, there's drop ship. There's ways to make money that are you can set up right now today, and you can make money doing something even if you don't want to do it, to do something you do want to do. And how I look at it is I see this path. I'm going to go down this path as hard and as far as I can. If I fail, I choose a new path. But I don't keep multiple paths open at the same time because it goes back to the beginning. I'm not going to have plan A, B, and C because
Right,
plan A is
right.
only going to get 50% of my efforts
Yeah.
because I know that 30% goes here and 20% goes here. So I kind of just like, I'm going for it, dude. And if I fail, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to start over. I'm going to do something that works, and there's times in content creation where I have come to that place where I'm just like, this isn't working. You know what I mean? Like that's technically a fail. Like when you go for something and you're like running, and you're just like, oh, okay, I was on a treadmill the whole time. I didn't go anywhere. That didn't work, and you're going to get to those moments, but the more you fail, the more you realize that failing isn't the end. And if you can realize that through me or Giga or other people, even better. If you can watch other people fail and not because they are, and they're telling you like what you should be doing, then that's even better. But I would say my advice to you, bro, would be realizing that failing is not the end. And there's always, I am a firm believer that there is always a route to where your dream is. Always. It might be harder. It might be more elusive. It might be, whatever the case is. It might take years. It might take months. I don't know. But there's always a way to get there. Your job from that point, from realizing that, is realizing like, now what do I need to do? And the best thing to do is to look at people who are already there and see how they got there and see if those ways work for you, and then start molding that. Like, okay, so I'll take this, but I won't take this, and use it like a watermelon and spit out the seeds, kind of thing. That's at least how I handle it. I'm kind
Yeah.
of weird though with some things because sometimes I talk to people and they're just like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay, you don't have to do that, but that's kind of like how I see it. But I failed a lot, and I still
Mhm.
definitely have that lingering in the back of my mind at times. Like when my first night of streaming from mornings,
Yeah,
I literally
yeah.
came from my average was 87,
Mhm.
and I watched my average go down to 66. And then I came into my first morning, like, all right, my first night, like, let's get these evening streams, boys. And there's like 17 people, and I love the 17 people that are there, and I get it. It's a completely different time frame,
Sure.
but it was like, oh yeah, okay,
Oh.
this is different. This is not what I was expecting, but that's my real emotion on it, and that's something that I had to take a step back and like I have to look at that as somebody who's wanting to do this, and I'm doing it full time, so that's something that I have to take into account and be like, I have to pay attention to these analytics and see like where we can change things and stuff like that accordingly.
Yeah, I think like for me, it's kind of different. I guess like part of my motivation comes from fear in some ways, like deep down, I guess. Because I'm like borderline allergic to failure. I like absolutely detest it, and I hate failing at stuff so much, which is probably the reason why I'm like I am in many ways. Um, and I think I don't know. Again, it's like it's double-edged sword stuff, right? It's like some things are good, some things are bad. Like I've always did pretty well in school, so like I never really learned to fail there particularly, and so I learned to fail like later on when it was very painful and
Mhm.
Mm.
really put me off. Um, but but that's kind of that's kind of where I guess I've come to the conclusion later on that I think, as you say, failing isn't the end. I had one moment that very much felt like it, but at the time, but it really wasn't. Things redirected, and it's the classic adage of one door closes and another opens.
Mhm.
I actually ended up getting an extra. I ended like yeah, I basically wasted an extra year because of the way that things panned out. I won't bother going into it. It's nothing secret, but it's just like it's just boring.
Mhm.
But I ended up getting an extra year, which meant that then basically an opportunity opened up, which I would have missed the boat if I had continued down the original path and ended up going down a completely different route that was way
Yeah.
better than it ever would have been before if it had all
Nice.
worked out in the first place, which is kind of nuts.
Mhm.
So you just never know what's going to happen. And I also think that the further you go along and the more things that you try and just go, I'll try this and I'll try this and being explorative, you don't need to necessarily go. I don't feel like sometimes you need to go completely nuclear. You just need to be interested in lots of things.
Mhm.
And you can do it that way too. So I mean, in your example, Church, when you've sort of broadly outlined a few things, but going from there's nothing wrong with bagging groceries or ghost, working in a bar or whatever, but like you learn
Mhm.
some stuff, and you're working in an environment with other people and colleagues and blah blah blah. But you're not learning any like specific skills really too much. But like now, church, you're running this, right? You do church does all of the stuff for ScavTalk. I do almost nothing for the back end of it. It's all down to church.
Mhm.
You're editing for airing, right? You're learning video editing skills, learning about marketing, all sorts of things, right? So the further you go, and the more things that you just try and you just go for it, you go, I don't know quite where this is going to end up, but I'm just going to go and do it. You end up
Mhm.
learning more and more skills. And so, say
It's
something
good.
goes terribly wrong, right? It's like in Tarkov, if you just suddenly deleted all your rubles out your account, you're like, well, I still have max traders. I'm still level 45. I've still
Yeah.
got da 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 da, and I've got all my skills, right? It's me.
Very
So
good
it's not like
analogy.
you've just stepped out of school or whatever, and you have no experience. You've now got all of these skills you can fall back on and say, well, look, if it all goes to crap, I can edit videos, I can manage social media, I can do all sorts of
Mhm.
things that I couldn't do before. And so I feel like it actually gets easier to fail as you go on in some sense. Like, yeah, maybe you've got more riding on you, more responsibility, sure,
Sure.
but you also have more to fall back on in terms of things that you're actually able to do. And so that's kind of helped me as well. I mean, I'm a relatively meticulous planner too, so I normally try to test the water with stuff and do things along, like, it's not always possible, but I like to do things alongside. I mean, it's how I've done this. I've tried to do something at the same time as doing the proven thing, and I like to prove the model out first and say, okay, well, this works in this scenario, and I think then if I scale it up and if I make a projection, then I think this is going to work, and blah blah blah, and kind of take it from there. I don't like diving straight into like random new things. I like doing them a bit first, and then taking it, adjusting and seeing. Because the thing is, for me, you never quite know where you're going to end up when you start doing something,
Mhm.
and you begin. I never thought I never had any expectations of running a podcast, but it's because I started the channel, learning video editing, putting out stuff. Church contacts me. We talk about economics. I throw it up on the channel. It's like an hour podcast or whatever. We all
Mhm.
end up talking with a bunch of other guys, and it's just stuff happens. But you
Mhm.
you need to be like out there, receptive to opportunity. But you need to be putting yourself out first before the in starts coming back. And you never know what's going to come back in. You just have to just go, just keep trying stuff, and just keep going, and trying new things and being interested. And yeah, even hobbies wise, it's trying new activities to broaden your mind and keep up with what's going on in the world and all of that stuff. Just being inquisitive, and just, yeah, broadening your mind and keeping an open mind about stuff, I think is the best policy. And because you never know what's going to come back.
Yeah. Just to add to what he's saying, that was all really good, and I love how opposite you are than
Yeah.
me, Giga, in many ways.
It's quite
Like,
fun.
I'm, like, taking it in, and I'm just like, "I like this different perspective. I like that you're saying this," because, like, when you said, like, "You don't have to go nuclear," and in my mind, I'm like, "Just go nuclear, dude. Like, just who cares, bro? Just go for," you know what I mean? So, but it's really cool to be able to, like, I feel like I'm growing from that conversation because typically you hang out with people who are similar to yourself, you know? So to being able for us to, like, talk about this back and forth, is really good. But to add on to that, church, the last thing that I would say is, like, don't be so hard on yourself. I feel like you're somebody who's very, very critical of yourself, way more critical of yourself than anybody else is of you. And there's times where you might think like, oh man, I made another mistake, or I fell short here, I fell short there. I'm not thinking that. Giga's not thinking that. And even though Airwing in the chat might say he is, he's not. No, but it's a and honestly, working for Airwing is a great opportunity, dude.
Oh,
To be
yeah,
able
dude.
to be in there and working under someone who's like legit. I've met a lot of crummy people, dude. To meet somebody who's legit, be able to work for them, and then also be able to do stuff that you are going to want to eventually do for yourself if that's the route you choose, and then you have those
Sure.
skills to do it on the side with him and other people too if your schedule changes to be able to it's just very very useful, and you're still in the sphere that maybe you want to be in because from what it sounds like coming from esports perspective and then now you're editing videos, like, I mean, it's still in the same realm, it's kind of
Yeah,
like in
yeah.
different and stuff, but I mean, you're kind of lingering in the area you want to be, and that's one of the best things that you can do. My advice from people who are way more successful than me has always been stop hanging around some of these people, and I'm like, well, what do you mean? They're like, you're going to become who you hang around with, right? You're an average of your closest 10 friends. So if I'm hanging out with 9 people who are doing nothing with their lives or not doing anything that is similar to what I'm doing, how can I expect to grow in that sense? Because I'm not being challenged by anybody. You never want to be the best in the room. You never want to be the one who's at the top of your friends list because you're never going to learn anything at that point. It doesn't give you a lot of opportunity, at least, to learn from people who are doing less than you. So you want to have like a good range of people that you're around and people that you engage with, because at the end of the day, you want to be pushed no matter who you are, whether you're Mr. Beast, whether you're GigaBeef, whether you're me, you know, Airwing, you want to be pushed. You want to have that accountability, and you want to have somebody who, you know, you guys can vibe on the same level. It's definitely going to help you grow in whatever you want to do, you know?
Yeah. And to tie it back to the beginning, you know, if you're in that group where your friends or your family is telling you, you know, you can't do this, you have to do it this way, you know, maybe it's time to get some new friends, you know?
Hmm.
Go
Yeah.
nuclear, as they say.
Like so many things. It's so funny because like even though yeah, I've taken like a more traditional route or whatever. Like I've always been basically obsessed with video games. I absolutely love talking about games. I've always just it's kind of the same as what you guys are talking about. You know, it's just like doing stuff or being at school, whatever, and just like thinking about whatever game it was at the time, strats, and
Hmm.
oh, how do we do
Hmm.
this, and you know, or sharing successes with friends or whatever. It's always been that way. But I find just like so many things in life sort of mirror that in some ways. It's like surrounding yourself with people who are better than you is very similar to playing against people who are higher than your MMR in a whatever game, right? Because if
Yep.
you're just stomping on Timmys, you're never going to get better. Whereas if you're playing against people who
Exactly.
are better than you, get your ass kicked and you have a 40% win rate, but you're going to learn and people are going to punish you for your mistakes, and that's how you
Hmm.
grow, right? It's very similar. There's so many parallels between like competitive video games and the real world in that
Hmm.
sense, just because at the end of the day, it's all just people. Right? It's all just people. You're competing against other people, and people who are good will teach you how to be better. People who are worse won't. So yeah, it's interesting.
Guys, I don't know about you, but I can't wait to go labs and die a million times. Like, I'm ready, dude. I'm ready.
So, Church, you're saying there's going to be a wipe, and you're talking about the end wipe event. Is that on the record what you're saying?
No, I'm saying I'm ready to go fail a bunch on labs, dude. Because I played it a little bit and I had some fun, but then we got dunked on twice by hackers, and I was just like, well, that was fun. I'll never do that again, you know. But
That's
yeah,
true. If you want to fail more often, definitely go against hackers. Put on some coastal servers, baby. Crack open an energy and just start looting stuff.
God, I hardly
Uh,
ever play labs. I really don't play labs very often at all.
yeah, I don't play it as much as I did last wipe. Last wipe, I kind of mained it for,
yeah, you were the labs main, weren't you?
yeah, and then this wipe, I dabbled, and then it's much different. Labs is not what it was last wipe, and it wasn't what it was the wipe before, and you know, it just wasn't exactly my cup of tea. I felt like either I was going against somebody who was cheating, or I was kind of like farming loot. And
Hmm.
you know, I want more action, and not really the action of raiders either, because raiders sometimes are hit or miss. Sometimes they bot out and they're easy to kill. And then sometimes, which isn't really gratifying, when they're just kind of like all just not looking at you and not responding. And then sometimes they're just completely cracked, where they're sliding around, hitting you, you know, 4 times in a split second. And so I started moving around. I've really, really enjoyed Lighthouse. I wish that it was better optimized, but I've kind of just been dealing with it. I don't get terrible frames like some people get, but Lighthouse has been really fun for me. I feel like there's so many different ways you can play the map, and I think that's why I like it, because you encounter a bunch of different people doing different things, and um, I really like that aspect of the map. The map seems very, very diverse. So
Yeah, it is. It is good. I think I've basically been learning the map with chat because I was like, well, I haven't put any time into it, so let's just go. And it's interesting because I've really just not it's just so difficult if you haven't actually watched all the stuff and read all the things or whatever, and I really have put it off a lot. I probably had my biggest XP raid the other day with like 12k, because I don't normally get huge XP raids, but I had like 12k XP from the Lighthouse raid the other day just because I went around and just shooting all the rogues in the head. And like slowly getting there. I feel like it's working, but I do agree with you in that I'm never normally really a big sniping guy, but because it's so PvE and there's lots of stationary targets, it feels a lot more gratifying to actually use the bolty because you're actually using the MOA then rather than just trying to quick snipe PMCs who are just going all over the
mhm,
place.
yeah.
But you could go chalets instead, and there's fights kind of across the road and stuff. It's cool. It's interesting. I think one thing that's great about that is that it really makes you make difficult decisions about your kit because you go, well, I really want to take in a long range
Hmm.
bolty to go and take these fights, But what if I spawn right down the other end and I'm gonna have to take a load of mid-range fights as well? So,
Mhm.
like, can I just take in a DVL with the Schmidt like 1x8? I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to pull that off, even with the pistol. So I think,
Mhm.
wow, maybe I should take something else. And they're making me really think about taking the second gun. I'm like, am I going to take like an AK with BP in it with me as well, or whatever? So it's really made me rethink about the kits. A lot of maps you can just either avoid an area. So if you go on Shoreline, for example, you can just play a mid-range kit and just avoid resort. And so you just play
Mhm.
outside the whole time because you can just skirt
Mhm.
around it. But on Lighthouse, you can't really avoid the fact that you might find someone close. You might get sniped from a million miles away because
Mhm.
everyone's got bolty. So
Yep.
that's kind of neat. That's kind of neat. That mixes it up. And I have had a lot more fun playing the map than I thought I was going to when I first started trying to learn it. I will admit it has been pretty cool. I think partly because of that PvE, it gives such a huge focus point for people to go to that then that
Mhm.
drives players to that particular place, and it makes people do stuff. It's like I've been playing quite a bit of Reserve Underground because I was using the MCX and making a vid
Mhm.
about it, and I needed to kill raiders down there anyway. So I thought, well, let's learn this bit as well, and I've got a lot better at being down there, and that was good because I'm normally again I'm quite allergic to the indoor areas of the game because I feel that's normally where the FPS skill more comes into play, and my forte, just because I historically haven't played a great deal, I'm just kind of out of practice a lot of the time, and so usually
Mhm.
I use my superior map knowledge and weapons and armor and ballistics knowledge to shoot at people before they see me. Use tactical positioning and move through the map.
Yeah.
I don't typically
Mhm.
camp and sit in one place, but I know the routes. I know where people are likely to be
Mhm.
listening to shots and placing people and stuff. And that's why I tend to go around on the outside on shoreline and not really have any issues. I find people fairly easily. And the fights that I like are the ones where people aren't even looking at me and they just die. And that's great.
Mhm.
But I'm starting now that I've got a bit more time, now starting to work on the me skills to try and get a bit better. And that's kind of where the reserve thing came from. But yeah, Lighthouse it's been fun. It's been fun. But and it still need to put quite a lot more time in. It's a complicated map. This is not easy, actually.
I really like what they did with the extracts as well. I feel like it was very thought out, and I feel like it's definitely changes. It makes that map different, in my opinion, than a lot of the other maps because of the way that the extracts work. The fact that you can extract on both sides of the map is interesting, and then also the fact that you have car, you have Red Rebel, you have multiple other extracts in the same area but different places. You have train. Like
Yeah.
there's so many ways to leave the map. It's like whereas let's say customs, you're kind of it's very linear in that way where
Mhm.
you have the under stronghold, right? But then you pretty much are going one side or the other, which kind of forces you on a path of like moving through. Like you can kind of tell where people rotate a lot easier because well, if we heard shots at dorms, they're most likely going to stronghold or gas station, and then from there they're going to the other end because that's where they have to
Yeah.
extract.
Yeah.
Whereas when you have somewhere like Lighthouse, like I have no idea where some of the rotations are going to be when you hear shots because there's so many places to leave. Like you could have somebody going super slow the entire map, going from one side of the map to the other and leave on train in the last 5 minutes. You have somebody who's doing really fast chalet runs, mopping up everybody, grabbing loot and leaving Red Rebel.
Mhm.
Then you have guys who are rogue farming and take car, guys who are rogue farming late with the cleanup crew, and then they're taking north. And then you have people who backtrack all the way to south. And it's just like
Yeah.
there's so much diversity when it comes to that, right? And so that has been I think it's been pretty cool because it does leave me guessing. I feel like a lot of times having I think I have like 5,400 hours in the game now. I don't find myself guessing a whole lot. I feel like I'm able to pretty much tell where someone's going to be if I hear something. People are creatures of habit, and there's many times where I can blind fire certain areas and get kills because people do the same things over and over and over based on what they're given. And Lighthouse keeps me guessing a lot of the time. So I kind of like that. Maybe it forces my gears to turn a little bit more than normal. And by no means in this podcast am I saying I'm like the best player ever and all that, but having thousands of hours in the game gives you that, you know, I can predict a lot of times when things are happening and be correct. And there's times that I'm wrong too, but Lighthouse, I like that about it.
I think the one
Ye
thing that's surprising for me about it, just sorry, Church,
No, go ahead.
just before we move off the topic, but is that I think the other maps were designed in an idea of, well, you need to move from one side to the other because otherwise people will just dip in, grab some loot, and leave. Um, and I think it's shown kind of the BSG's like mentality around the maps changing a little bit because Labs is also a bit like that. But people don't just dip into labs, grab some stuff, and leave. I know there's a gate there for of money with the cards and stuff, so it's maybe a bit
Mhm.
different. But Lighthouse is kind of you can go either which way, but people don't just run in. I mean, maybe Chalet and Red Rebels, sort of the only one, but because of the way that the spawn points are
Mhm.
put in place, you're still incentivized to move into the map, and the extracts are actually quite far away from the action. It's a bit like the problem with customs is that if you, it actually is okay over by Big Red, sort of. If you had, if you spawned in by Big Red and you could leave out of Big Red, you probably wouldn't because there's only a few boxes and then you'd just be leaving. It'd be really pointless.
Mhm.
The problem is on the other end, there's so much industrial loot that if you spawned in there, you could just hoover up and then leave, which is the
Mhm.
problem. But Lighthouse is kind of like that, where well, you spawn in, but and the extractor you can kind of go wherever you want, which feels a lot more free, but it doesn't hamper the gameplay, and it's not, I don't know, sort of ratty in that sense, or I don't know, just like subpar gameplay with people running in, looting, and just leaving in, and it's boring and very safe
Mhm.
because you have to go in and go to these dangerous areas, but then you can go where you like. It feels freeing without allowing people to take an easy route as well. It's like it's really cleverly designed. That's all I wanted to say about it because I never really thought that the maps could be like that before because
Yeah.
of the way that they are right now. But
Yeah.
it's cool, and I think New Woods is a bit like that too. I think that's maybe where they were first, well, not testing out, but where that kind of thing first got implemented. Right, as they had on New Woods expansion, you can go all sorts of places, outskirts or the other one gate or another gate or whichever. So I think Ghost has been waylaid very slightly by a little person in the background. Oh, it's all good. We'll just wait for him to get back. We saw
Okay.
you got a
Sorry.
little interruption from the little person.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You're
All
good.
good. What were you going to say before, Chad?
Um, well, the comment what you're saying, that's actually interesting because it is a very like vertical slice of a map. Like, customs is kind of like a elongated rectangle. Interchange is like a giant square. Woods is just like a giant circle U horseshoe thing. Like, I don't know. So I wonder how much that plays into it because you really can't go horizontally that far in certain spots.
Mm.
So I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. But I think once they get the Lighthouse Trader implemented, that's gonna even spice things up more because right now, I'd say, like, on average, most people kinda move up north to the water treatment road camp facility. So I feel like having that pull towards the bottom half of the map would make things even more interesting, sort of like crossing paths, if you will, or I don't know, dude. Like, imagine you could spend so much time in a raid, you could go maybe you do Lighthouse first, get the trader, then you go up and try to like take out some rogues also and get out. Like, I don't know. I'm super excited to see the Lighthouse expansion and what comes with that and how the map flows. And yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned Interchange because at this point, after playing these other maps, I actually don't feel like that corner along the large road where there isn't anything there and there's a train crash over the bridge. If you just
Yes.
put an extract in there for
Yes.
anybody on the map, I feel
Please.
like people wouldn't just leave straight out of there, right? Like I don't think after playing Lighthouse and Woods and a few of the other maps after they've been expanded and being more like that, I really don't think it would hamper gameplay because it's so far out of the way as well. It's
Hmm.
actually a very similar mindset, and then you reduce some of the extract camping and make the map a bit less frustrating. And I think it would increase the dynamicness of the way that
Yeah.
the map flows without harming it because it clearly hasn't harmed it on these other maps. And I think that one is very similar because that is in the middle of nowhere. There's like nothing next to it, right?
Mhm.
So I think that would be great. And you can see they've been doing this on other maps. We've now got Path to Shoreline, which anybody can take at any point. And
Mhm.
again, that makes it more dynamic. They removed the Red Rebel extract there, but that's fine. Now that there's another extract that people can take there, and I think this is good. I'm adding more extracts. It's clearly not harming the game, and it's just better. It's just better. They should do it on Interchange too.
Yeah, to add on to that and what Ghost was saying earlier about, like, predictability, if it's, like, 25 minutes in a raid and I'm walking into Ollie and I see a PMC in the back of Ollie looting, it's 25 minutes in the raid. I know you have to go to the Immercon extract. So I'm not
Mhm.
gonna run and chase you through the Ollie store. I'm gonna go and cut the exits off. I know there's, like, a couple different paths to go to Immercom, but at the end of the day, you
Mhm.
gotta walk to Immercom. So, like, it's just like yeah, it's like it makes it so predictable, so yeah, uninteresting. God, Interchange, man, that map, I love it and hate it so much, dude. I love it and
I
hate it.
am glad though that Shooter Born in Heaven is not there anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Yeah.
has definitely made it better. It has not fixed it by any means. I've still been camped there this wipe. I fought people multiple times at both exits and even camping power. I feel like that's even been more common this wipe than
Mm.
last wipe is full teams camping power. But Shooterborn was like next level, dude. It was like, bro, there I am getting sniped from I don't know where every time I leave interchange. It was like 21 SR was like almost like a necessity because it was like,
Yes.
dude, like if I don't have this, I'm dying. Like if I'm completing
Yes.
any quest on interchange, I'm getting killed. Like because you're not even fighting people like in the bushes by the extract. They'd just be in random bushes far away and sniping. I remember there was one spot where you can't actually see them from your perspective because they would crouch at the crane at Emercom and they would like lay down sideways and you'd be able to see through the bar
Oh.
where people stand. And bro, I'm just like, what are these spots, bro? Like, are you kidding me? How am I supposed to know he's there? Like, so I mean, it has definitely made it better, but yeah, I still have had my fair share of camps. And I remember, I don't know if you guys remember what Nikita was saying about that. How he was saying they purposely don't make more extracts because they want people to be alert the entire raid and not like let their guard down. But I still think that they can achieve that by still adding like a couple different ways you can leave though. You know, I don't think
Yeah.
that people are going to be like it's going to like ruin the map if you like add an extract or two, but it would help the fact that there's not only two like main places to be sitting, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly right. And like my experience on Lighthouse trying to get back from the rogue camp, the way one of the way I mean, there's lots of ways to do it, but one of the ways to do it is you have lots of scavs spawn in, and it's one of the reasons why Lighthouse performs really badly, actually. I think. But I was going from the rogue camp, and I
Mm.
went back to Path to Shoreline, and as I was going back through the village, I was getting shot up by scavs and stuff. Like all you'd need is a few more barricades around there, so that you couldn't just pick them off easily, and have scavs in that area, so that like scavs is a bit to me like DayZ zombies, right? They're not
Yeah.
necessarily supposed to be a super threat, but they make you fire your gun. They shoot at you, which is actually worse because half the time you're suppressed. They're not. So people just hear 12 gauges going off. That they know
Mhm.
that someone's getting shot up over in the corner. And that's the thing. It's supposed to draw other players, and that's how you can be kept on your guard. I ended up having to go a completely different route because I was fairly heavy and full of loot and stuff, and I didn't want to fight them. I was like, I can kill them, but there is a risk because I'm wearing ULAC. There is a risk that I take
Oh
express
yeah.
to the left eye socket and die, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
45 minutes into a 12k XP raid. I'm just going to completely avoid them. And it makes you want to, save your character and have that survival instinct and think,
Mhm.
Yep.
I could probably win here. I'm way better geared, but you never know, right? You never know with the AI. You just don't know. So I ended up, avoiding going a different route and that kind of thing. So that's again, it's another way of doing it so that people aren't just getting a freebie, but it makes the game
Mhm.
more interesting. It's good. We're getting better. I think, yeah. Lighthouse is a really good example of the good map design. I think they've really got a lot of the concepts nailed now. I'm excited.
Mhm.
I've played a
Okay.
ton of interchange to swipe, and I've never been extract camping. That's
You've never been extra
never,
camped?
never.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. Okay, it's you're thinking Church is trolling me.
Because you're
He's
the camper?
no,
Just kidding.
no. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's oh, dude, I should have said that. But no, truth be
Uh,
told, it's not because I'm extract camping or taking SR11.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
taking the backpackless extract, bro. Just like, but it's
Oh.
like the only extract that I haven't been camped at because who's gonna camp a
Yeah,
backpackless extract? You know?
yeah, exactly. You have nothing to give.
Like I've actually ran to other people trying to take the extract. Like it's kind of crazy, but God,
Wow.
man,
I
interchange,
forget about that one. I always forget about that one.
bro. Honestly, it's the only way I can enjoy the map. It's just like with all the shenanigans, like Killa, just oh man,
Mhm.
just everything that's like wrong with that map. It's the only way I can enjoy it. It's just like, yep, I'm just not gonna take a backpack. I'm just gonna shove a few things up my butt and leave. It's just like, yeah,
Mhm.
I'll
And
just accept
TV
it.
and your container, yeah.
Yeah, because like and then it's wild too because we'll get in like I used to play a ton and we'll play duos with a buddy and we'll just like clean up the mall. But if we get into like a big PvP fight, we'll be like, oh yeah, let's take these backpacks and go extract. Yeah, we got some loot. Extract campers, bro. It's like, wouldn't you know it, dude? It's just like it's wild, man. It's wild.
Yeah. I definitely noticed that a lot on interchange, which kind of sucks because I am an interchange enjoyer and I know a lot of people don't, but I feel like there's some of the best PvP on interchange.
Yeah.
It's just such a cool experience that almost every store you can go into, and it
Mhm.
just gives you like almost limitless opportunities for like weird fights. You can do
Yeah.
so many crazy rotations, and like if I want to go and like run through 2 weird stores that nobody's in and I could. If I want to get surprised by somebody laying on the floor by some clothes, they can, like
Yeah.
there's just weird stuff that happens that is kind of different than a lot of the other places. So I do like Interchange. I definitely have to crank my post effects because that thing is so freaking dark.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I really do like the map. I think there could be some positive changes to it, but I do like the map design.
Actually, yeah, there's something that I was gonna speak about. I guess we should probably think about wrapping up soon because
Yeah.
I think we're nearly at 2 hours or whatever. But I was supposed to write this down and I forgot about it because I was playing Reserve, Underground, D2. I always have problems with Interchange. Everything's so dark. I've said before my misgivings about changing post effects when I change maps. You already have to do so much. If you change
Yeah.
gun, you have to then change the ammo in your secure style, get different mags,
Mhm.
put the rig on, and then the last thing I want to be doing is going post, brightness up to
Yeah.
change that. So annoying. But we were just talking about various things, and someone said, "Dude, just try it. Just change your gamma now. It'll take you 5 seconds, and just see what happens." In the NVIDIA control panel, and I did, and I changed my gamma from 100% to 100, from 1 to 1.35,
Mhm.
and man, it's night and day. I haven't
Yeah.
Mhm.
actually played Interchange since, but I can see.
You can
I can
Yeah.
see
actually
in
see.
reserve. It's
Yeah.
actually insane. Like, because I've been really stubborn about not changing it. Like, oh
Yeah.
no, it's fine. I'll just play out. And this is one of the reasons why I like playing outside, because inside is almost always so dark. But
Mhm.
yeah, just
Mhm.
crank that gamma up. Outside still looks fine. Like it's a bit bright, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the visibility at all. I
Mhm.
see a bit more banding in colors on my monitor,
Yes.
Mhm.
but dude, I can actually fight people. Like so, the number
Mhm.
of times, and I think the what cinched it for me was I was down in the power lever, pull the power lever, walk into the actual because I came from the non-glass side, walk into the actual office. As I'm walking through, I just hear smashing glass. An F1 just comes through the window, and there's just a raider just like sat the other side of the glass. Literally couldn't see him at all, and I was like, "Chat, we need to do something about this." And so
Yeah.
changed the
Yeah.
camera, and I was like, "Okay, this actually made a huge difference." Like, I don't know why I didn't do this like a year and a half ago because it
Mhm.
may have changed my entire experience with the game. So yeah, that's actually worked really well, and I've been playing with it on exactly that setting ever since. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, a lot better. I'm just so stubborn with my settings. I hate changing them. I really do. I'm not.
I do Giga, easy solution, just never don't change maps, just always go D2 no matter. That's the secret, dude.
And do it. Same gun, same map, same ammo. It's the way.
Oh my
Good stuff.
gosh.
Well, dude, Ghost, thanks so much for coming on, man. It was like absolute blast, dude, to have you on. Really
Heck
enjoyed
yeah, dude.
talking
I had
with
a
you
ton of fun
today.
like always.
Yeah, I love
That's
having you on. It
awesome.
was obviously a bit different having some kind of like real talk, which is yeah we don't do
Mhm.
that often. So it was good though. It's good. We've
Yeah.
got some stories behind us, especially now. It's like good time and whatever, and especially as a fellow father. I know that me and Church have spoken before about getting some of that perspective in because it's different and it's interesting. So no, I hope you enjoyed yourself. It's as Church
Heck
said,
yeah.
it's always amazing having you on, and yeah, look forward to the next time, man.
I really, really appreciate the opportunity to come on the podcast and be able to talk. I don't take it lightly when I'm offered a chance. I know that you guys have a million creators. There's a lot of people in the Tarkov community you could have asked. So I super, super appreciate it. Being able to come on here and talk, and not just you guys pick my brain, but us have like an actual conversation in front of
Mhm.
people. And I've learned stuff leaving this podcast and conversation, and more things to put in my bag, and I'm excited about it.
That's awesome, dude.
Awesome.
Can you do me a favor and tell us where we can find you at?
XVLN, X villain, XVLN Ghost everywhere. Same name everywhere. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Uh, what else am I missing? Twitter.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and so that's where you guys can find me everywhere. I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff on Facebook. That could be another conversation for another day. But so yeah, that's XVLN Ghost.
Guys, if you enjoyed Ghost today, go check him out. Awesome creator. You'll probably see me in this chat typing some form of Keck, whether it's Keck W, Keck L, Sad Keck, and
Couple
yeah,
mankas in
always
there.
yes. So cool. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up here today, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Cool. Later.